when you come down to very relatable. Yeah, whoever's on the end, you just step aside and you're not gonna sit. Good.
All right. Good morning, everyone. The March, oh, wow, that was instant quiet. Thank you. The March 27th, 2025 public meeting of the California Air Resources Board come to order. Board Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Dr. Balmes,
Here.
Mr. De La Torre, Mr. Eisenhut, Senator Flores,
Laura's here.
Mayor Gloria,
Here.
Mr. Guerra,
Here.
Ms. Hopkins,
Present.
Senator Jackson, Mr. Krakow,
Here.
Ms. Ortiz-Legg,
Here.
Dr. Pacheco Werner,
Here.
Mr. Reckshoffen,
Here.
Dr. Shaheen,
Here.
Senator Stern, Ms. Tagwarian,
Here.
Chair Randolph. Madam Chair, we have
Here.
a quorum.
All right, so we will start with our housekeeping items before we get started this morning. We are conducting today's meeting in person as well as offering remote options for public participation both by phone and in Zoom. Anyone who wishes to testify in person should fill out a request to speak card available in the foyer outside the boardroom. Board assistant prior to commencement of the item. If you are participating remotely, you will raise your hand in Zoom or dial *9 if calling in by phone. The clerk will provide further details regarding how public participation will work in just a moment. For safety reasons, please note the emergency exit to the rear of the room through the foyer. In the event of a fire alarm, we are required to evacuate this room immediately and go down the stairs into the lobby and out of the building. When the all clear signal is given, we will return to the auditorium and resume the hearing. A closed captioning feature is available for those of you joining us in the Zoom environment. In order to turn on subtitles, please look for a button labeled CC at the bottom of the Zoom window, as shown in the example on the screen now. I would like to take this opportunity to remind everyone to speak clearly and from a quiet location, whether you are joining us in Zoom or calling. Interpretation services will be provided today in Spanish for both in-person and Zoom attendees. For joining us using Zoom, there is a button labeled Interpretation on the Zoom screen. Click on that interpretation button and select Spanish to hear the meeting in Spanish. If you are joining us here in person and would like to listen to the meeting in Spanish, the board assistant, and they will provide you with further instructions. I want to remind all of our commenters to speak slowly, pause intermittently to allow the interpreters the opportunity to accurately interpret your.
Buenos días. Los servicios de interpretación estarán dados el día de hoy en español, tanto en persona como en Zoom. Si ustedes van a acompañarnos utilizando Zoom, hay un botón al calce que dice interpretación. Por favor, haga clic en ese botón de interpretación y seleccione el español y podrá escuchar la reunión en español. Si usted está con nosotros en persona y le gustaría escuchar la reunión en español, por favor, hable con alguno de los asistentes de la Junta y ellos les darán más instrucciones. Les recordamos a todos los participantes que hablen de manera lenta y hagan pausas de manera intermitente para permitir a los intérpretes la oportunidad de interpretar completamente todos sus comentarios.
I will now ask the board clerk to provide more details regarding public participation.
Thank you, Chair Randolph. Good morning, everyone. We will first call in-person commenters who have turned in a request to speak card, and then all commenters who are joining us remotely. If you are joining us remotely and wish to make a verbal comment on one of today's board items or during the open comment period at the end of today's meeting, you must be using Zoom webinar or calling in by phone. If you are watching the webcast but you wish to comment remotely, please register for the Zoom webinar or call in. Information for both can be found on the public agenda for today's meeting. To make a verbal comment, we will be using the raise hand feature in Zoom. If you wish to speak on a board item, please virtually raise your hand as soon as the item has begun to let us know you wish to speak. If you are using a computer or tablet, there is a raise hand button, and if you are calling in on telephone, dial *9 to raise your hand. Even if you previously indicated which item you wish to speak when you registered, you must raise your hand at the beginning of the item to be added to the queue. For anyone giving verbal comments today in Spanish, please indicate so at the beginning of your testimony, and our interpreter will assist you. During your comment, please follow any instructions the interpreter provides. When the comment period begins, the order of commenters is determined by who raises their hand first. We will call each commenter by name and will activate each commenter's audio when it is their turn to speak. For those calling in, we will identify you by the last 3 digits of your phone number. We will announce the next 3 or so commenters in the queue so you are ready to testify when we come to you. Please note your testimony will not appear by video. For all commenters, please state your name for the record before you speak. This is especially important for those calling in by phone. Each commenter will have a time limit of 2 minutes, although this may change at the chair's discretion. During public testimony, you will see a timer on the screen. For those calling in by phone, we will let you know when you have 30 seconds left and when your time is up. Your time will be doubled if you require Spanish interpretation. To submit written comments, please visit CARB's Send Us Your Comments page or look at the public agenda on our webpage for links to submit your comment. Written comments will be accepted on each item until the chair closes the record for that board item. If you experience technical difficulties, please call 805-772-2715 so an IT person can assist. Thank you, and I'll turn the mic back to Chair Randolph.
Thank you. Before we get to today's agenda items, I want to take a few moments to recognize some changes to the membership of our board. It is my distinct pleasure to introduce and welcome the 3 newest members of the California Air Resources Board who were appointed by Governor Newsom in February. First, representing the San Diego Air Pollution Control District, I would like to introduce Mayor Todd Gloria of San Diego. A former state assembly member representing the 78th Assembly District, he was sworn in as mayor on December 10th, 2020, and reelected in November 2024. The 3rd generation San Diegan of Filipino, Dutch, Puerto Rican, and Native American descent, Mayor Gloria has deep roots in the community. He is a graduate of the University of San Diego, an enrolled member of the Tlingit Haida Indian Tribes of Alaska, and the first person of color, as well as the first LGBTQ person ever to be elected as mayor of San Diego. Linda Hopkins was appointed as the Bay Area Air Quality Management District member of the board. Supervisor Hopkins currently serves as the Sonoma County District 5 Supervisor, as well as a range of other duties, including the chair of the Regional Climate Protection Authority, Sonoma County Transportation Authority, and Sonoma Clean Power, as well as director of the Russian River Watershed Association, Santa Rosa Groundwater Sustainability Agency, and Northern Sonoma County Air Pollution Control District. And she's got 3 little kids. So a graduate of Stanford University, she's also the co-owner of Foggy River Farms, where you can find her picking apples and tending to her herd. Don Ortiz Legg is the representative of District 3 on the San Luis Obispo County Board of Supervisors. Supervisor Ortiz Legg was born in rural Illinois, but has been a resident of San Luis Obispo. A graduate of Pepperdine University, she also holds a Master's of Public Policy from Johns Hopkins School of Advanced Studies. In addition to her role as supervisor, she is chair of First Five, vice president of the Central Coast Community Energy Policy Board, San Luis Obispo Local Agency Formation Commission, San Luis Obispo Council of Governments, and the San Luis Valley Groundwater Stakeholder Group. Ms. Ortiz Legg is the 2025-2027 chairperson for the Latino Caucus of California Counties and is on the Parks California Advisory Board. In addition to the gubernatorial appointments, we would also like to introduce our newest ex officio member, Dr. Corey Jackson. Dr. Jackson represents the 60th Assembly District, including the towns of Moreno Valley, Paris, and San Jacinto. He was elected to the Assembly in November 2022 and re-elected for a second term in 2020. He has chaired the Human Services Committee and is the current chair of Budget Subcommittee number 2 on Human Services. He also served as the founder and CEO of SBX Youth and Family Services, which works to break the cycle of poverty and violence through mentoring, education, and community organizing. Dr. Jackson is a graduate of CSU San Bernardino and received his master's and doctorate of social work from California Baptist University. So welcome to all of you. We're very happy to have you join us here on the board, and we really appreciate your willingness to take on this really, really important work. So that also means we must say goodbye to several deeply valued members of our board. So those members are Davina Hurt, V. Manuel Perez, Nora Vargas, and Eduardo Garcia. Ms. Hurt is going to be joining us a little bit later in the meeting, so we will have a more detailed chance to say goodbye to her in a few minutes. Supervisor V. Manuel Perez joined CARB after the retirement of long-running board member Barbara Reardon, representing Riverside County's 4th District. He brought extensive knowledge of the needs of residents affected by the goods movement industry and really brought his knowledge of those impacts to his work on the board, and we very much appreciate his service. Supervisor Nora Vargas was sworn into the San Diego County Board of Supervisors in January 2021 and represented the San Diego Air Pollution Control District on CARB's board. As the San Diego representative on our board, she worked tirelessly on efforts to mitigate the effects of climate change and freight pollution on disadvantaged and border communities, and we appreciate her service. Eduardo Garcia was appointed as ex officio member to the board back in February of 2017 by Speaker Rendon. His achievements include co-authoring SB 32 with Senator Fran Pavley, which requires a reduction of GHG emissions to 40% below 1990 levels by 2030. Along with AB 197, this bill was signed into law by Governor Brown in September of 2020. In 2017, Assemblymember Garcia authored AB 398, which extended the operation of the state's cap and trade program from 2020 to 2030. So we really appreciated his perspective and expertise as we implemented those laws that he brought to life. So we will miss former Senator Garcia. Finally, today is Gideon Krakow's last meeting as a CARB board member. He has served as the representative of the South Coast Air Quality Management District since being appointed by Governor Newsom in December of 2020. Board Member Krakow has shown incredible leadership on the board as we worked on critical issues in the goods movement sector and on the Environmental Justice Advisory Committee charter and much, much more. So because Board Member Krakow is here for his last voting meeting, I wanted to give him the opportunity to say a few words.
Thank you, Chair Randolph. You know I can't help but say a few words, right? This decision has not come lightly, but after careful consideration, it's the right time for me to step down from CARB and South Coast AQMD to focus on my family obligations in the aftermath of the Eaton wildfire. I'm sorry I can't be there today. I don't want to continue to serve unless I can give it my all. You all deserve that, and the Californians we represent deserve that. I'm so thankful to Governor Newsom for the opportunity to serve. It's been the thrill of a lifetime, been the work of a lifetime, and I honestly never thought I'd be in these kinds of positions. You know, I wasn't born in California. My mother, a single mother, and I journeyed here in 1981. We drove cross country in a Volkswagen Rabbit, seeking opportunity, quality of life, a fresh start. And I've always seen public service as a way to pay that forward, to pay forward all that California has given my family and so many others on this journey. And we know that our public service work is a family affair. My wife, Misty, for some reason I can't figure out, is so supportive of me and all the things that I do. Colleagues, I'm so proud of the work we've done together since 2020. Chair Randolph, Davina, Tanya, and I were appointed together with an enormous to-do list. There was so much on the docket on our plates when we started, you know, and we did it all. Let me go through this. Small off-road engines, phasing out ag burning, heavy-duty smog check, TRUs, commercial hovercraft, advanced clean cars 2, in-use off-road diesel, locomotives, advanced clean fleets, hexavalent chromium, the scoping plan, aerosol coatings, the Clean Truck Partnership on omnibus, forklifts, the low carbon fuel standard, committing to dairy regulation. I mean, wow. In each of these, considering both innovation and pragmatism, breathers and ratepayers, fence line communities and the regulated communities, making sure we post our draft resolutions the week before our meetings, and then hearing from all interested parties before finding the right equilibrium. We successfully managed the transition of a new board chair, Leanne Randolph, and a new executive officer, Dr. Cliff. A new Southern California headquarters in Riverside opened in the midst of a pandemic that we navigated through together. We distributed billions of dollars to jumpstart clean technologies and infrastructure for cars, trucks, buses. I just read we have more electric chargers in this state than gasoline pumps. That's because of our work, colleagues, while also working to better incorporate environmental justice, restructuring our Office of Community Air Protection, managing our 617 programs with a new blueprint, creating a permanent environmental justice advisory committee for our climate programs, creating an office of racial equity, and we're going to hear more about community engagement today in our agenda. And internally too, we stood up the DARE program to focus on staff morale and well-being, all while managing strong internal controls, governance, and budget, and minding the store on the complex market-based programs that we manage with the world watching, like Cap and Trade and LCFS. And I'll finish soon, Chair. I'm also proud of the partnership, allegiance, and communication we foster between my air district, the South Coast, with 18 million people, and CARB. We've done enormous work in the South Coast during my tenure, including securing the largest air grant in US history with CARB help. During this time, this journey together, I've marveled at the culture of this agency. CARB, its staff, such high-performing public servants, creativity, competence, a culture, colleagues, of excellence that we all inherit, each of us, from our predecessors here. Staff and board, my support team and consultants. But what I'm most proud of really is the relationships built with each of you board members, each one of you. You know who you are, each different and special in its own way. We're always going to be friends. Leanne, it's not easy to follow an icon like Chair Nichols, yet you did it. You do it every day. We learned so much from you about public service and about leadership. And now, 5 years later, there are new entries on the docket: carbon capture, climate reporting, along with making sure that we execute on the policies adopted these past 5 years. And I know that in doing so, each of you and all of our great new board members that were just introduced will build on and protect our inheritance our culture of excellence at CARB. And I'll speak honestly, I know that there is uncertainty now, frustration, fear, some federal fights. But there's an old saying, if you're not moving forward, you're moving backward. Does anyone here want to move backward when it comes to air quality, pollution control, or combating climate change? No, we Californians are not going to move backward. We've already been there. These tragic wildfires are a reminder of what is at stake as we work to meet our climate and air quality goals. Do these fires show that Californians value the air we breathe, managing climate risk? Darn right. These are our values as Californians. And we have an agenda item on that today too. So today, despite adversity, we will move forward at CARB. You know, you can't do something worthwhile, can't build the abundant California we all want without overcoming adversity on that journey. We're going to move forward at CARB, steady, steadfast, to meet our air quality and climate goals, our quality of life goals for the next generation. The same California values that brought my mother and I here when I was a young boy. I won't be on the dais with you, colleagues, as you continue this journey, but will always be a partner and ally in your work. Governor Newsom knows I'm committed to ensuring a smooth transition, and I'm happy to assist in any way during this process. Thank you again for your collegiality, for the trust you placed in me, and I look forward to the continued success of the California Air Resources Board, our common inheritance of excellence, an inheritance shared by everyone in this meeting today and the 40 million Californians that we serve. So thank you for letting me say a few words, Chair Randolph.
Always, Gideon, always. So we will very much miss you and appreciate that you have been one of the most engaged and hardworking board members. And that's on top of all the incredible work at South Coast, all of which is unpaid. So just really appreciate your dedication to serving the people of California. Okay, so now we are moving on to the consent calendar. The first and only item on the consent calendar, as noted on the public agenda, is item number 25-2-1. 2025 updates to motor vehicle emissions budgets for California Ozone state implementation plans. If you are here with us in the room and wish to comment on this item, please fill out a request to speak card as soon as possible and submit it to a board assistant. If you are joining us remotely and wish to comment on this item, please click the raise hand button and dial *9 now. We will first call on in-person commenters, followed by any remote commenters when we get to the public comment portion of the item. Pollution that comes from cars and trucks has a significant impact on the air we breathe and our health. To support state efforts to meet national ambient air quality standards, the Federal Clean Air Act establishes requirements known as transportation conformity to ensure that transportation planning by transportation agencies does not interfere with air quality planning. State implementation plans establish motor vehicle emissions budgets for each region in California. Once motor vehicle emissions budgets are approved by CARB and then by US EPA, transportation agencies must demonstrate for all future transportation plans or projects that their emissions do not exceed the limit set in the motor vehicle emissions budget. This is known as transportation conformity. This process ensures that expected changes in vehicle miles traveled, or VMT, due to transportation activities do not interfere with air quality progress needed to attain federal standards. Reductions in VMT remain critical to supporting attainment of ambient air quality standards, as well as to our efforts to reduce greenhouse gases and meet other state mandates. Today, we will be considering updates to the motor vehicle emissions budgets for San Diego County and the San Joaquin Valley 8-hour ozone state implementation plans. Dr. Cliff, would you please summarize this item?
Thank you, Chair Randolph. Wow, that is loud.
Slower.
I don't know how to calibrate. That's, we're gonna get this way far away from my mouth. Okay, for the 70 and 75 parts per billion 8-hour ozone standards, CARB submitted state implementation plans to US EPA over the last several years that included motor vehicle emissions budgets developed using the California On-Road Mobile Source Emission Estimation Models, or MFAC 2017 and MFAC 2014. In 2021, California released a new version of the MFAC model, which has been approved by US EPA and is now in effect for transportation purposes. Due to the updated data and methodology changes in the model, even with the same vehicle activity, MFAC 2021 more accurately shows California will get higher emissions from the on-road vehicle population in many areas of the state compared to estimates from prior versions. As such, the San Diego County and San Joaquin Valley transportation agencies are currently not able to demonstrate conformity against motor vehicle emissions budgets established using the older MFAC models in their existing SIP-approved plans. To align the motor vehicle emissions budgets in the 70 and 75 parts per billion 8-hour ozone standard plans for San Diego and the San Joaquin Valley with MFAC 2021, staff is proposing the board approve the updated motor vehicle emissions budgets developed using MFAC 2021 and direct staff to submit the 2025 ozone budget update to the US EPA as a revision to the state implementation plan. The only comments received on this item were not directed at this proposal. Before I conclude, I'd also like to take a moment to recognize a member of the team that developed this item and has been an integral part of every California SIP revision over the last 15 years. Sylvia Vanderspek, Chief of the Air Quality Planning Branch in our Air Quality Planning and Science Division, is retiring next week after an impressive 36 years of state service. Most of which have been spent here at CARB. Sylvia joined the SIP team in 1999, took over as branch chief in 2013, and has been involved in at least 100 board items since then. In her time leading this team, Sylvia has established herself as the indisputable expert on California's many, many SIPs and has continually impressed all with her seemingly endless knowledge of the Clean Air Act. Her ability to remember unique issues and details from countless SIPs and to use that knowledge to come up with creative solutions to ever-evolving issues has been vital to the SIP progress we have made in recent decades. It has also gained her a deep appreciation of the air districts across California, as well as, of course, with the executive office. Sylvia's wealth of knowledge, pragmatism, and creativity have prevented countless SIP emergencies and conformity crises over the last 30 years. It cannot be overstated the impact she has had on the success of SIPs in California, and thereby the positive impact she has had on air quality across the state. While we wish Sylvia the very best in retirement, she will be greatly missed here at CARB. Thank you, Sylvia. This concludes my summary of the item.
Sylvia is just amazing. And I will miss her very much because she's always extremely clear in her explanations. And as Steve mentioned, also has come up with creative solutions and has worked incredibly well with EPA Region 9 and our local air districts. But you've built an incredible team. So I feel like you're leaving us in good hands. Okay. Board Clerk, have any witnesses signed up to testify on this item?
We do not have any commenters in person or over Zoom for this item.
Okay. So I will now close the record on this agenda item. The board has before them resolution 25-3. Do I have a motion and a second?
I move that we adopt this resolution.
Board Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Dr. Balmes,
Yes.
Mr. De La Torre, Mr. Eisenhunt, Senator Flores,
Flores, aye.
Mayor Gloria,
Aye.
Mr. Guerra,
Aye.
Ms. Hopkins,
Yes.
Mr. Krakow,
Yes.
Ms. Ortiz-Leg,
Aye.
Dr. Pacheco Werner,
Yes.
Mr. Rechtschaffen,
Yes.
Dr. Shaheen,
Aye.
Ms. Takvorian,
Yes.
Chair Randolph.
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right. Congratulations to our new members, your first vote. Okay, the next item on the agenda is item number 25-2-2, an informational update on CARB's community engagement model. If you are here with us in the room and wish to comment on this item, please fill out a request to speak card as soon as possible and submit it to a board assistant. If you are joining us remotely and wish to comment on this item, please click the raise hand button or dial *9 now. We will first call on in-person commenters, followed by any remote commenters when we get to the public comment portion of this item. As you may remember, the board adopted Resolution 20-33, a commitment to racial equity and social justice, in October 2020 to establish and advance equity in all CARB activities. This effort is essential to furthering CARB's mission, given that race remains the single most important determinant of who bears the burden of air pollution. To achieve critical air quality and climate change goals, we must consider and embed equity in all that we do. For that reason, our agent's stated vision for racial equity is to support just social change by working at all levels within the organization and externally to address environmental injustices and advance racial equity in the achievement of our mission. This work includes identifying and implementing best practices for community engagement that build trust and strong relationships with the communities CARB serves, and that engage communities throughout development of CARB programs to ensure equitable outcomes for all Californians. In recent years, and in partnership with community members, CARB developed the Community Engagement Model to give our staff a consistent approach to meaningfully engaging in communities, particularly those most impacted by pollution and where race plays a role in inequitable outcomes. Racial equity considerations are ingrained in the model, as is the importance of working transparently, developing relationships that are mutually beneficial, and incorporating diverse perspectives to ensure that CARB decisions incorporate and reflect community voices. The community engagement model is a crucial step forward in CARB's effort to advance racial equity, and all staff are encouraged to use this guidance when engaging with communities. I will now hand it over to Dr. Cliff to introduce the item before staff present an informational update on CARB's community engagement. Dr. Cliff.
Checking. Oh, okay, better. Thank you, Chair Randolph. I'm also very excited about the development of CARB's community engagement model and other racial equity tools to help staff better consider and advance racial equity throughout our agency's work. The goal of this tool is to standardize best practices for community engagement throughout CARB and provide guidance and resources for consistent design and effective implementation of community engagement plans. Through the community engagement model, staff will be better equipped to utilize best principles of community outreach and engagement, develop a deeper understanding of the importance of community engagement to CARB's work, and achieve mutually beneficial outcomes. The community engagement model aims to advance racial equity and social justice in a number of ways. The model encourages meaningful community engagement and the integration of community input throughout CARB's actions, including the initial design to ensure that CARB priorities are directly informed early on by communities and that they have the opportunity to lead outcomes that best align with their community needs. Racial equity and environmental justice principles are embedded in the model. This helps advance our agency's vision for racial equity, that race no longer predicts life outcomes. It also ensures that those impacted by structural racial inequities are meaningfully involved in the creation and implementation of ongoing and future CARB actions that may impact their lives and lead to outcomes that are more just and equitable. CARB staff co-created the community engagement model with input from community experts and through community partnerships over the past 3 years. 18 staff from 13 divisions coordinated with 19 community experts, and held 9 public community dialogue sessions, along with individual conversations with community-based organizations to ground truth the model. Based on thorough feedback, CARB staff launched a revised version of the community engagement model in January of this year. The model is available in English and Spanish on CARB's Community Engagement Model website. CARB values the involvement and engagement of communities in our work. Now that the tool is finalized, CARB staff will apply the community engagement model in all relevant CARB activities where appropriate and feasible as described in the model. The Office of Racial Equity is leading coordination of agency-wide support on the model. The lead staff will provide a detailed overview of the model, its development process, ongoing implementation efforts, and its use throughout CARB. I will now ask Andrea Delgado of the Office of Racial Equity to begin the staff presentation. Andrea.
Thank you, Dr. Cliff. Good morning, Chair Randolph and members of the board. It's a pleasure to be here today. My name is Andrea Delgado, and I am an air pollution specialist in the Office of Racial Equity. Today, I will present an update on CARB's community engagement model. I will share its purpose, overview the sections, discuss the development process, and then end with the efforts led by the Office of Racial Equity to support staff's use of the community engagement model. What does racial equity have to do with community engagement? As Chair Randolph mentioned, the board's resolution 2033 calls on CARB to meaningfully advance racial equity by addressing institutional and structural racism through several mechanisms that include establishing and enhancing proactive measures to ensure racial equity in all CARB's work, both internal and external, as well as identifying and implementing best practices for community engagement throughout all CARB actions. Racial equity is described as both a process and an outcome in CARB's racial equity framework. This framework was released in 2022 as part of our commitment to provide a shared understanding to become an anti-racist organization. Racial equity as a process ensures those impacted by structural racial inequities are meaningfully involved in the creation and implementation of CARB actions that impact their lives. Community engagement is an essential part of the process. Racial equity as an outcome means race will no longer predict life outcomes, and that all outcomes for all groups are improved. If we improve the process to engage and partner with community, our outcomes should reflect community's influence and ultimately be more equitable. CARB is embedding equity in our work by developing and using equity-focused, data-driven tools to help staff deepen our engagement efforts, better incorporate community expertise, and operationalize racial equity in our work. One of the tools is the community engagement model. The model standardizes best practices to help staff better collaborate with communities, including diverse and hard-to-reach groups, by placing equity at the forefront of community engagement. This ensures those impacted by inequities are meaningfully engaged. The overarching goal of this model is to ensure that the engagement and CARB actions address environmental injustices and advance racial equity. The community engagement model is an agency-wide guidance document designed to provide comprehensive guidance to equip CARB staff with the essential knowledge, tools, and confidence to incorporate community perspectives into their engagement plans. The model contains practical tools and best practices throughout that are intended for staff to reference and incorporate into their plans for engagement. This includes templates and other resources that address topics such as accessibility, transparency, logistics, and methods for outreach and engagement. The model begins by grounding staff in some of California's history regarding environmental injustices that necessitate this work. The following 5 sections of the model direct staff to collaborate with communities and be transparent about the purpose and impact of engagement as they prepare, plan, and carry out engagement activities, perform a thorough follow-up with communities, and evaluate the processes. Let's walk through the 5 sections of the model. The first section is prepare, which happens before any outreach is conducted. It helps identify the objectives, resources, and who to engage with. In the plan section, staff think through meeting logistics for creating inclusive and engaging events. Questions like where to locate an event so it is easily accessible by community members, or how to create accessible materials are answered in this section. Through the Implement section, staff can access interactive engagement tools, guidance for facilitation, and checklists for hosting meetings. The follow-up section guides staff to continue building relationships by informing communities how their feedback was considered, how it influenced the CARB action, and any next steps. The last section helps comprehensively assess the overall engagement efforts to understand impacts and lessons learned for future improvements. It was very important that the model be meaningfully co-developed with communities. The Community Engagement Capacity Building Work Group, a team of CARB staff across 13 divisions, was formed in 2022 to develop a model. The team was initially led by Crystal Love Lazard and worked in collaboration with Sarah Rubin at the California Department of Conservation. 19 community experts were contracted from across California to co-develop the model through in-depth feedback based on their lived, professional, and leadership experiences. Experts were from disadvantaged communities, had experience with community engagement or outreach, and had previous experience working with government agencies. The work group held 4 online meetings with community experts where they provided written and verbal recommendations. Each expert was compensated up to $5,000. The work group also hosted extensive public engagement through a series of 8 public dialogue sessions in person and virtually to receive comments and recommendations from the public to help improve the model. Throughout these engagement efforts, over 2,800 comments were received. The work group took a yes approach to comments and were able to incorporate about 90% of comments into the model. These comments are reflected in the revised model that was launched at a public dialogue session in early January this year. The model, along with the workbook, are publicly available. This collaborative process with communities resulted in a model that has been thoroughly vetted by communities and CARB staff. CARB's Office of Racial Equity is leading the implementation of the model. As previously mentioned, about 90% of comments were incorporated into the model, and communities expressed that they felt heard and their voices were represented within the model. On the slide are the themes of the comments that helped shape the model. The work group added resources for staff to increase their cultural competency and facilitation skills, to include diverse voices and better engage with affected communities and hard-to-reach groups. The model strongly recommends partnering with community-based organizations. The model offers guidance for equitable practices, including fostering accessible spaces tailored to community needs, as well as evaluating events by setting measurable goals and approaches. To increase transparency, the model provides recommendations to close the loop with communities about how their comments help shape the CARB action. The work group prepared a public comment table that captures each comment received, along with detailed responses stating if each comment was included or not and why. Along with this table, the work group prepared a document that summarizes comments and a document outlining public recommendations that require additional resources to implement. You can visit all 3 documents through our Community Engagement Model webpage linked on the screen. Over 30 CARB staff contributed to the development of the model. The next 2 slides feature some of the staff in the Community Engagement Capacity Building Work Group, not including former members that phased out. A crucial aspect of model development was bringing diverse perspectives from across the agency. We recognize and thank CARB staff for their dedicated time and effort. The next 2 slides showcase the 19 contracted community experts from across the state. CARB is very grateful for the time, efforts, and insights from community experts during the model's development. Now we will share a video with testimonials from a community expert and CARB staff sharing their experiences.
My name is Joyce Wong, and I am an air pollution specialist in the Sustainable Transportation and Communities Division. I was part of the Community Engagement and Capacity Building Work Group that developed the Community Engagement Model. I appreciated that different divisions were a part of the work group because although we as an agency are working towards the same goal, the approach and programs used to reach that goal are different. And it allowed us to think more broadly about how community engagement and racial equity is an agency-wide effort, not just the work of one staff or one division. And I learned how to facilitate meetings, improve my public presentation skills, and how to manage multiple workloads. Staff echoed they were extremely proud of their work on the community engagement model and enjoyed being able to learn from staff across divisions.
Hi, my name is Deidre Zell, and I'm an air pollution specialist in the research division. I was part of the community engagement and capacity building work group. In creating the model, we were also building the plane as we were flying it. Through our work with community experts and in our 10 public meetings, we were able to test or develop parts of the model, learn from our experiences, and then reflect that back into the model in step-by-step directions for staff.
Hello, my name is Lashe Kabli, and I am a staff air pollution specialist in the Transportation and Toxics Division. I was a part of the community engagement and capacity building work groups. Working on the model was an extremely fulfilling experience, and I'm very proud of the rigorous work that went into its development. It was very important to me and to the team to ensure that communities were meaningfully involved in the development of the model. It was crucial that communities had a say in how we engage with them. We took a yes approach when addressing community comments and were able to incorporate the vast majority of their 2,800 comments into the model. This process was very labor intensive, but it felt very rewarding to show communities how much we valued their input. And it felt even better to hear them express an appreciation for the transparent nature of our process. One thing that we heard loud and clear is that communities want to be engaged early and often in open and collaborative processes. The development of the model met this need, and the model clearly lays out how to replicate these and other best practices for community engagement.
My name is Richard Falcon, and I am the Interim Executive Director for United Latinos. United Latinos is a nonprofit organization focusing on civic engagement, education, and in particular, environmental justice. When I was asked to be a part of the many coalitions and community groups coming forward to build this model, I was completely honored to be with all these wonderful people talking to an agency like CARB about what are the needs of the community when it comes to building this model for engagement. So I got to learn from a lot of different people around California and to add my own focus from the community members that I have heard from about what they feel like with the trust levels. And my experience with this is being able to take this information, bring it back to community, talk to the families, the students that we work with, and to say, hey, does this resonate with you? I love the detail of the intentionality of bringing this together. And this is why I feel so good about the success of this model as we go forward.
I'm so excited for staff to use the community engagement model and its accompanying workbook. It was designed for them by taking out the guesswork of how to appropriately engage with communities.
I was also part of a research division team that piloted the community engagement model to incorporate environmental justice into our upcoming 5-year strategic research plan. The model helped guide our work with 7 community-based organizations, 7 public roundtables with 180 community members, and other efforts throughout the state. Our experiences in that process really emphasize that the model provides the information and the tools needed to support our roles as public servants who meaningfully involve the public in our work.
I'm Emma Lawrence Tomei. I'm an air pollution specialist in the Sustainable Transportation and Communities Division. The draft community engagement model was a great resource to us as we began planning public engagement around zero-emission space and water heater standards. It invited us to be clear and intentional about who we're engaging at different phases and why. It inspired us to hold a solicitation for public experts to support us in our regulatory research, analysis, and public engagement process. And we offered compensation for community-based organizations and low-income individuals. So far, these public experts have shared briefings and technical feedback on our methods. They've co-hosted listening sessions to reach communities not typically engaged in CARB workshops. And after we finalize our regulatory proposal, they'll help us anticipate and plan for implementation needs. The community engagement model has remained an important touchstone to us as we continue to reflect and make decisions about our ongoing engagement work.
I deeply value working at a science-based agency that uses community engagement to inform our work and to serve all Californians, but especially Californians that are the most impacted. by air pollution and climate change. So thank you to all of the community members that spent their time and their energy on these efforts.
Research shows that policy decisions that positively engage the public are more durable and less contested. Using the model to better integrate community voices helps CARB create and implement policies that accounts for all Californians. The model deeply integrates the wisdom of communities, and I thank them all for their expertise.
I feel so much gratitude to you all for the reflection that this model has supported on our team, and I'm so excited for the ways it'll continue to shape engagement work at CARB for the years to come.
And some of the changes and outcomes that I hope to see, more participation from the community, growing that trust within the community, and being able to hear and help community feel like their voices are welcome to be a part of this and that they will be listened to. And as an artist, and you will find that artists can be a great way to bring information and participation from the community as we come together to try to find solutions to air quality that will work for all of us.
Special thanks to Mr. Falcon, Joyce, Lashe, Deidre, and Emma for their testimonials. Slide, please. The Office of Racial Equity was established in response to Board Resolution 2033 in order to operationalize CARB's commitment to just social change by working at all levels to address environmental injustices and advance racial equity in the achievement of CARB's mission. To help meet CARB's commitment, the Office of Racial Equity is coordinating agency-wide support of the community engagement model by offering technical guidance and co-developing resources to support future implementation. CARB aims to foster consistent application of the model to improve effectiveness, ease of model use, and identify and address areas for improvement. In terms of next steps, the Office of Racial Equity is supporting CARB staff by hosting weekly office hours, as well as appointments for tailored one-on-one support with the model. We are developing agency-wide trainings for staff shaped by community voices to ensure the model is used effectively and with proper support. We will collect data to track model usage and feedback from staff and communities to improve implementation and staff support, assess outcomes and impacts, and update the iterative model as necessary in the future. We will also provide regular updates to the board on racial equity efforts throughout CARB, including progress on model implementation. These are various actions that help reinforce the learnings from the model. We are building staff capacity by providing equity tools and trainings to advance racial equity. We will be supporting more and more efforts to ground truth projects with community members so that we are co-developing programs with communities to better fit their needs. To ensure that the model is creating change at CARB, we will be working closely with the teams using the model to analyze the pre and post evaluations that are a critical component of the model. We will also gather additional data to ensure community voices are being heard and incorporated. To provide a holistic view of what CARB is doing to advance racial equity, we are putting together a document to share regular updates on our equity efforts, the first of which will be released this spring. During this process, we heard the need to develop a tribal engagement model. CARB's Office of Environmental Justice, Tribal Affairs, and Border Relations will be engaging with tribes and leveraging existing tribal engagement work done by the California Climate Investment Group for this effort. We also heard the need to remove barriers to participation in CARB's engagement and partnership activities. CARB is working with Cali PA to explore opportunities to address existing barriers, such as monetary compensation. To conclude, the community engagement model aligns with the implementation of the board's directive in Resolution 2033 to meaningfully advance racial equity and environmental justice. We hope the practical guidance and considerations from this model and its accompanying workbook continue to assist all CARB staff to more meaningfully engage the communities we serve. For more information, you can contact us or visit CARB's Community Engagement Model webpage. Once again, this informational item does not need a board vote. Thank you all for your time. Chair Randolph, I'll pass it to you.
Thank you, Andrea. That was a great staff report, and I really appreciated the video. So thanks to the whole team that put that together. It was excellent. Okay, we will now hear from the public who signed up to speak on this item, either by submitting a request to speak card or a raised hand in Zoom. And I'll ask the board clerks to call any public commenters.
We do not have any commenters signed up to speak or in Zoom for this item.
Okay, great. So now I will bring this item back to the board. This is informational, so we don't need to have a vote, but happy to open it to questions and comments. And I know Dr. Balmes had something to say.
Supposed to be on. There it is. Thank you, Chair Randolph, and thank you to all of the staff, maybe especially the Office of Racial Equity for leading this effort. I'm the longest serving board member since 2008. And I say that because I've seen the culture of this organization, which was always about excellence and evidence, embrace environmental justice. Those of you who know me well, I'm practically tearing up because it's so important to me that we made this transformation. I was the co-chair, I guess I still am, the chair, if not co-chair, of the consultation group for AB 617. And we had our butts kicked about the fact that we were not trained to engage. It wasn't in our DNA. It wasn't really in our culture. I mean, there were individuals that did great work earlier on, but it really wasn't part of the agency's mission, really. But it is now, and I'm so proud of that. Board Member Krakoff, who often says things very well, talked about how important our work has been in terms of environmental justice. And that's more important than ever now that the current federal administration has canceled environmental justice. Literally, they're removing all funding from any grant that has environmental justice in it, whether it's the National Science Foundation or the NIH. I know some of that firsthand. So I am very happy to see an implementation plan for community engagement that's going to take us to the next step. That training that you've put together to help staff throughout the agency work better with communities, and can't be more proud of that. So we have, I know there's a lot of work to do, but this is an incredible first step. So thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Shaheen.
Okay. Looks like we got a green. Okay. All right. Thank you, Chair. And I just wanted to echo a comment that Dr. Balmes made about sort of the attack on science and the grants and the role of environmental justice. So, I'm just so proud of CARB in developing this model and its reflection on process and bringing in lessons learned, and particularly delighted to see the step on follow-up, where there's a lot of communication with the members of the community, where I think that may be really helpful for reinforcing the transparency that you got so many comments on. That I think is going to take us a long way into the future, and hearing from the community and having them feel like they were heard, and that the vision is reflective of the local needs of that community. So thank you for that. I just had a quick question around in the development of the model, and I believe you've tested the model, correct? What challenges did you encounter that brought you some lessons learned that may have affected your thinking about how to go forward?
Some of the challenges that the team, the work group that encountered when we were going through the process was people showing up to the meetings, even though we were engaging with the communities. We were making sure that we are advertising it in their communities, doing door to door. The turnout at times was not what was expected, but then that was a learning curve for us so that we can pivot and change our model based on that. So the team got firsthand experience in reaching out to the people and getting them to the meeting. So that was one of the big challenges that we noticed.
Well, thank you and congratulations on this. I'm looking forward to hearing a lot more about how it's used in the policymaking process. Thank you.
Board Member Eisenhut.
I also would like to acknowledge Dr. Balmes. My originally just short of 2 years ago, member Takforian and I were in a process that, while it's a little bit personally intimidating, is also instructive. And as I reflect on that conversation, there were 3 of the 5 Rules Committee members who were laser focused on this topic. And at that period in time, our efforts were embryonic, I think, at best. And both Member Takfarian and I made assurances to that committee that this work would proceed, that we would get feedback, and that feedback would be shared with, at the very least, frankly, the 3 Democratic members of the Rules Committee. And I would request we, I guess, meaning David Garcia, implement that feedback in some formal and meaningful way. I personally considered it and would volunteer to be involved if he deemed it appropriate. But I think it closes the loop, partially closes the loop on our efforts in that arena. Thank you.
Thank you. Board Member Takavorian.
Thank you, Chair. I'm so excited that we're here today. Express huge staff who's here who have made this happen, and obviously to the hundreds of people who participated and comments. And I so appreciated your let's say yes approach within the model. I think it's really where we all want to be, and it's tough to be there when you've created a document or a policy and you want to move forward and somebody says, yeah, but did you think about this or that? And from a neighborhood perspective, it's really important that you're acknowledging that, and that really community members are the experts. And that was really evident throughout the document. Having spent the majority of my career advocating in environmental justice organizations, this is incredibly meaningful to me as well. I joined Dr. Balmes in being very moved by this. And I just want to remind us about a couple of things. I had the privilege of co-chairing the first California environmental justice effort in 2004. So when we think about how long environmental justice organizations have been advocating for their rights and for a clear, transparent, and meaningful community engagement model back a number of decades. So while I'm proud of us and excited that we're here, we're still catching up, I think, and I appreciate that we're part of this. I guess I want to join Drs. Balmes and Shaheen in saying that we didn't know that this would be completed at this point, but we are here, and in some ways it could not be more timely. And as we think about the attacks on environmental justice and on federal EPA, I think we need to think about how strong CARB is standing up. And I'm really proud about that. The other thing I want to say is that I know that many board members were not here when the 2020 resolution was adopted. So I just wanted to acknowledge that I want to encourage you to read it if you haven't had a chance to read it, and to read the letter, the very courageous letter from Black employees, Black CARB employees that was sent to us, the board. And that was the impetus for the resolution. So we have decades of environmental justice and environmental racism that we are addressing, and I'm proud of that. But we are also addressing our own employees who stepped forward and were very courageous in out some of the inequities here at CARB and in our communities in our state. And so I think we're still on that path. Obviously, it's not, as Phil Cerna, who crafted the resolution, said, it's not one and done, but we're here and we're making progress, I think. The one thing I would ask, and I talked to staff about this, but I really feel that, and I don't think it was the job of this project, but board engagement is really not ups. That's what Mr. Eisenhut was saying, and from the Senate committee, and I all feel it. So I really want to suggest that while there's plenty that happens at CARB that doesn't involve the board, shockingly, we're not involved in everything. And I think this guidance is excellent for staff. Community engagement that do come to the board is critically important. And you noted that following up with communities on how their input is used was noted, and that we need to be transparent about that, but that it really wasn't the subject matter of this guidance document. So I'd like to really suggest that we figure out a way that we can follow that to talk about what is the how can we be more responsive, when this out and having tours and talking with people lived and where they worked. And I think that may or may not be practical, and the pandemic put an end to that, but there's other ways. And I know that you all probably have really good ideas for that. But I think that transparency is critically important to continue to build trust that this model is obviously going to. So that would be my request, that we think about ways that for the future staff in moving this forward. So thank you so much.
Okay, that's a great point. Thank you. Board Member Rechtschaffen.
Thank you. In Board Member Krakoff's terms, I have a few words. No, I'm just kidding. I won't be that long.
You usually are short-winded.
Okay, I'll
relative to
try to be
Gideon.
short-winded. My colleagues have said how important it is to be moving this forward now and to underscore our commitment to racial justice at a time when it's under fierce attack. I want to emphasize too that the whole notion of community engagement is also under very fierce attack. So it's really vital and important and noteworthy that we're standing up and forwarding community engagement principles. I have three quick comments, or just to underscore what was said and what Andrea and our colleagues talked about with me at my briefing with you guys. One is that this is an agency-wide program, an agency-wide effort. The goal is to have all parts of the board working on this. I'm happy to hear that you're talking about trainings and office hours. I have one suggestion, Steve and Courtney and others to think about, is perhaps having a liaison for each division to work directly on implementing the community engagement principles so that it's centered in all the specific divisions' work. Second, I'm happy that we are going to be working on a specific tribal engagement model. The needs of tribes are different, and it's important that we recognize that and craft our policy to address those needs. So I know that's on the to-do list. And then third, I know it was beyond the model, this particular model, but I heard you say that, and Board Member Kakvorian touched on this, that one of our tasks going forward is to try to show the community, the extent to which their comments were incorporated into decisions. That's not always an easy thing to do. There's a lot that goes into that, but that's an important ask that we've heard from the community over time. I think that, as well as continued work on barriers to participation and better facilitation, are critical. The compensation piece is somewhat novel and innovative, but we realize more and more how important that is. So I'd urge us to lean into that and think about creative ways we can fund compensating groups who don't traditionally have the resources or ability to participate, to get involved. So thank you very much for this outstanding work.
Thank you, Supervisor Hopkins. And also, I have been informed that when we turn our heads when we talk, the microphones don't pick us up anymore. So while you're talking, get right on top of the microphone and don't make eye contact with anyone.
That note, I'll try to do both. I want to thank the Office of Racial Equity for the briefing that I received in advance. And I'm honestly so excited to join a board that holds racial equity and environmental justice as core values. And to have this item at my first meeting feels like a real gift. So thank you for that as well. I also just want to express my gratitude for the community experts that were part of this process and the input of the residents with lived experience who participated in this process. It is a true testament to genuine community engagement that you received 2,800 comments and incorporated 90% of them. I also concur with all of the comments of my colleagues and really appreciate Board Member Takvorian's comments about board member relationships. And I just want to call out the fact that this right here, this creates a power dynamic. And the more that we can actually be out in the community, hearing from the community on the community's turf, the better off we all will be. And yet, of course, we all have only so many hours in the day, and it's a very large state. So trying to figure out how we can be accessible in ways that don't sort of exacerbate the feeling of disempowerment that this creates, I think is very, very important. And that brings me to, I just wanted to touch base briefly on building trust with impacted communities. I really think that building trust is an iterative process, and it's something that is very challenging to build and very easy to lose. And so I was really interested in the part of the model that talks about evaluating change over time. And I was just wondering if there was any more information to share about what that looks like and potential metrics that we will be looking at to ensure that this really truly is incorporated into the day-to-day business and the decision-making processes of CARB.
So one of the processes that we baked into the model is Radhika Majel from Environmental Justice and Equity Branch. So one of the ways we incorporated into the model for the is the pre and the post evaluations. So the model recommends staff who are engaging with the community to take those pre and the post surveys to make sure that the community voices are being heard, because those that information will then give us an input if the voices are being heard, if the materials were accessible, if the meeting was appropriate for them. So all this, that is one of the baked in processes. Above from that, Office of Racial Equity is going to do their own pre and post when we meet with CARB teams. So that is going to take another layer of evaluation and making sure that our teams are following through. And if we see a disconnect, then we can help them bridge the gap.
Board Member Guerra.
Thank you, Chair. I want to thank right off the bat all of our CARB staff who not only for this briefing but for many of you are in Sacramento, and so obviously I want to thank all my fellow Sacramentans. I'm not forgetting those in Riverside as well and Southern California. But I'm extremely proud and want to recognize this year only diversity and lived experiences that our own staff are involved in this process. And I want to make sure that the staff recognize that I also support and associate myself with the very eloquent remarks by my colleagues here recently. And as Board Member Takvorian mentioned, some of us weren't here, and I wasn't here in 2020, but I was literally across the street in my office and watching my predecessor, Supervisor Cerna there, and to see the sincerity and the focus on advancing what is true community engagement and not just checking the box and the evaluation of it, because so often, and in fact, some of those who criticize and have criticized most recently this agency and its staff for, say, not being out in front of the public, this is a clear example of how it has been, and not only just for notification purposes, but for true engagement and evaluation of what the value of the information means to our everyday Californians. So I'm very proud of where we're moving in this direction, because it is, I think, a better model of community engagement. And as all work is local, I also want to, thank, Richard Falcon and the United Latinos who have been helping out in the Greater Sacramento Air Basin for ensuring that their voices are heard in this process. And to say that, I hate to say that this is complete, because, I think we are going to learn from this evaluation process moving forward. So I do want to thank again my predecessor in this seat, Supervisor Cerna, for that work, and my current colleagues who have watched this and moved it and made sure that we are where we are today. I also want to thank the chair for making sure that this, did not become just something that an agency can or needs to just get accomplished, that there was actually true engagement. Former board member Davina Hurt, who's in the audience, I know her sincere and time commitment and engagement in this as well, on top of her conflicts with, as many of us have with family and trying to get back and forth. So I appreciate that. Thank you, Chair. And again, as where I started, I'll end. And nothing happens without our great CARB staff. And I want to thank the staff for that effort.
Hey, thank you, Dr. Jackson.
Thank you so very much, Madam Chair. I also want to thank the staff for this incredible document and strategy. I would also say that, number one, it's great that we got to 90%. I think, as we've discussed before in the briefing, the importance of also explaining to the community why we couldn't get to the 100%, right? Some of it could be capacity, some of it could be resources, but then also outlining, well, what's the plan to be able to get to close to 100% as possible, right? And whether it is additional requests that needs to be made to the legislature or other things, I think equally as important is also making sure that the community knows that how much more we would like to do and what is our plan to get there, and current roadblocks in terms of being able to get there. So I would encourage you all to create that plan and make sure the community understands that plan so that they can also do their part in helping to get to that 100%. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Dr. Pacheco-Werner.
Hi, yes. Thank you, Chair. I wanted to just thank you all who have worked on this. This is so wonderful, and I know really responsive to a lot of the things that have been raised over the last few years. Two things on this. I want to say that I do see this, and I hope that staff, as they see the workbook, see this as an opportunity to actually document a lot of what they already do. As someone that has seen staff either be with a community that's monolingual in the middle of an unincorporated area to being in a fairground, big building, taking some very tough questions from industry. I have seen our staff engaged, and I hope that they see this as an opportunity to really document more of what they've already been doing, and then seeing those opportunities for growth. One of the things that is just very minor, but goes with how we leverage resources, is that I think as we have a more intentional outlook of how we engage with communities, and actually have them be more part of the process. I really see in terms of the report back section of the workbook, how there can be opportunities for collaboration so that the reporting back isn't even always being done necessarily or coordinated by CARB itself. Rather, the community is taking back that information and telling the story in their own communities. So just wanted to point those two things out. Thank you.
Thank you. And thanks so much for all the board member comments. I agree with much that has been said, and I think board member Takvorian's point is well taken, that we should think about what the board engagement potential might be as we think about, the board has been engaged in various work like the SB 617 consultation group that Dr. Balmes mentioned, other various work groups. And so there might be an opportunity for further board this effort. And I want to give special thanks to our Deputy Executive Officer, Chanel Fletcher, for her work leading this team, and see if you wanted to add anything to the discussion.
Sure, and I'm going to try to follow the directions, not make eye contact and be in the mic, but I just would say this, that I think I know we have some new board members. So for those that don't know me, my name is Chanel Fletcher. I'm the Deputy Executive Officer of Equity, Communities, and Environmental Justice. It is a mouthful. But one of the things that I wanted to say is that I started at CARB in 2021. So it was right after we had adopted Board Resolution 2033. And that was one of the resolutions that called for an Office of Racial Equity. It called for us to standardize best practices. There's a lot in that resolution. And I remember when I came into CARB, I had the Office of Community Air Protection, which was like maybe 25 people, and I had a staff of 5. And I remember thinking, I have no idea how I am going to build the infrastructure to do, I think, the work that is in this resolution. And so it is now 2025, March 2025. So my 4 years at CARB, so I'm still a baby, but 4 years in, and it's just been really such a pleasure to see where we have come from. So, right, so like you guys are seeing the staff that are here, but we have an entire branch that's about 18 people that are working on, the work that we're talking to all of you about, right? OCAP has grown significantly from 25 to 40, right? So I think just seeing that and being able to come to all of you and present and say, hey, look, you passed this resolution 5 years ago. And yeah, we now have an Office of Racial Equity. We have an Office of Environmental Justice. We're significantly growing and continuing committed to growing our Office of Community Air Protection and our AB 617 work. I mean, those are things that I think, especially in this climate and what we're seeing happening at the federal level, it's just really powerful. So I just wanted to make sure that people understood that I know that there's a lot of kind of conversations around DEI, environmental justice, and equity. So I think to be at a public board meeting, to be able to share out how we're following through with our commitments, and I think to have this entire leadership team really being behind the work that we are all committed to doing, and all of you on the dais, it really, I think, helps to support all of us. So just thank you all so much for, I think, being thought partners with me, for talking me through things, talking me down from things. And the same for all of my colleagues at this table and the people that I can't see behind me. I just really wanted to say a lot of gratitude and appreciation.
All right, thank you. And thanks to all the staff who worked on this again. But it's incredible work that is ongoing. So appreciate it. Okay, Dr. Balmes wants to say a few words.
Just to echo.
Very briefly.
Yes. Janelle, those were wonderful words. But just to bring it home, what you said, when we were in Fresno and you and Rajinder were trying to figure out something, it was wonderful the way that showed me how your work is woven into the rest of the organization.
All right, thank you, Dr. Balmes. That was appropriately brief. Okay, so this is an informational item, no vote is necessary. The last item on the agenda is item 25-2-3, an informational update on CARB's Los Angeles fire incident response activities. If you are here with us in the room and wish to comment on this item, please fill out a request to speak card as soon as possible and submit it to a board assistant. If you are joining us remotely and wish to comment on this item, please click the raise hand button or dial *9 now. We will first call on in-person commenters, followed by any remote commenters when we get to the public comment portion of this item. On January 7th, 2025, 2 unprecedented fires erupted in Los Angeles County, now known as the Palisades Fire and the Eaton Fire. These fires account for the loss of approximately 16,000 structures, most of which are residential homes. And tragically, they cost 29 people their lives. The emergency response from local and state and federal agencies is ongoing. CARB is collaborating closely with partner agencies on the response, and we are actively engaged in several activities in the debris removal recovery phase. CARB's incident air monitoring section has been deployed, and along with other CARB staff, has been working with local agencies to understand and address air quality concerns in the burn scar areas and surrounding communities. We have been sharing information and resources with the public on recovery operations, air quality concerns and monitoring, public health impacts, and steps individuals can take to protect themselves and their families. This is the largest mobilization of CARB staff ever to work on an emergency incident, and I want to thank them, especially the staff who've been deployed to the field. Dr. Cliff, would you please introduce the item?
Thank you, Chair Randolph. Shortly after the fires broke out in the Los Angeles area in early January, CARB staff was quickly put on notice to prepare to support the South Coast Air Quality Management District with air monitoring if needed during both the wildfire response and the recovery phase, which takes place once the fires are extinguished. Since January, over 40 CARB staff have spent over 1,000 plus hours working with our local, state, and federal partners to monitor air quality, analyze the data, interpret the results, and communicate with the public. Efforts include community-level field work on site within the burn scars, at the FEMA Joint Field Office in Pasadena, and remote coordination from Sacramento. In today's presentation, you will hear about the efforts and activities that CARB is actively engaged in during this particular emergency response and proactive measures staff are contemplating to enhance our already existing emergency response capability to be more prepared for future events. I will now ask Alora Franco of the Monitoring and Laboratory Division to begin the staff presentation. Alora?
Dr. Cliff. Good morning, Chair Randolph and members of the board. Today's presentation, I will be providing background on CARB's incident response program, as well as information about how our team has been assisting efforts to understand and communicate air quality in the wake of the Los Angeles wildfires. I will also discuss potential partnerships and research opportunities to assist us in being better prepared for future incidents. Before we move on to the body of the presentation, we'd first like to acknowledge the devastating impact the LA wildfires have had on everyone living in the area, some of whom include our own CARB colleagues, and express our deepest sympathies to those who have been impacted. CARB's incident response program was established in 1991. The program has expanded over the years in response to the 9/11 terrorist attacks and Hurricane Katrina in 2005. Our emergency responsibilities are outlined in the statewide emergency plan and the California Emergency Services Act. CARB's role is to provide air quality monitoring, interagency coordination, and technical support during incidents related to wildfires and uncontrolled releases of hazardous materials. Incident response is initiated by the local government. However, in many cases, for air quality impacts, they look to CARB for support and resources. These support during state-level emergencies can include air quality information to support decision-making, air monitoring and analyses, modeling and forecasting, health impact analysis, and public communication. CARB's Incident Air Monitoring Section, also known as IMES, which is the team that I'm a part of, is the primary contact and coordinator for CARB's emergency air incident responses. Our primary responsibilities include supporting air districts with air monitoring requests during natural and industrial emergencies, actively participating in Cal EPA's emergency response and disaster preparedness group, and taking part in emergency preparedness coordination and training events to enhance readiness and response capabilities. Our team responds to a variety of incidents, ranging from industrial incidents to wildfires. However, our primary work has been focused on wildfires, as wildfires in California have become more frequent and severe due to the effects of climate change. To rapidly respond to incidents, we've staged particulate matter monitoring equipment, supplies, and sensors at 9 locations around the state and trains local air district staff to deploy the equipment. When an incident occurs and assistance is needed, either a local air district or the Governor's Office of Emergency Services, known as OES, contact our unit. Depending on the incident, our staff will either deploy equipment to the location or air district staff will access the stored equipment and set it up themselves. Data from this air monitoring is communicated and shared with the air district and local public health officials, who then use the information to develop public health messages and advisories. On January 7th, fires broke out throughout the Los Angeles area, and over the course of 24 days, devastated the communities of Palisades and Altadena. Typically, CARB supports the short-term response phase by conducting air monitoring while the fire is active. Once the fire is out and air quality returns to typical background levels, the recovery phase begins and no additional monitoring is required. There are a multitude of entities involved in the recovery phase depending on the size and complexity of the event. For this event, CARB is working within an OES FEMA joint field operation, which oversees broad recovery efforts and coordinates with a variety of federal, state, and local partners, as you can see on this slide. Multiple task forces and subgroups were formed to address all aspects of recovery, to which CARB leads the OES Debris Task Force Air Quality Subgroup. To date, by far, this is the largest effort of the history of CARB's incident response program. Unprecedented destruction caused by the LA wildfires come an unprecedented cleanup and rebuilding effort. As the Palisades and Eaton fire response transitioned to the long-term recovery phase, residents expressed concerns about potential toxics being present in the debris. Increased truck traffic, potential dust and ash resuspension during hazardous waste removal, debris clearing, and rebuilding efforts have driven public concern about local air quality and requests for additional air monitoring. This has led to CARB's close collaboration with South Coast AQMD to expand air monitoring efforts to address new questions about what's in the smoke from urban fires and potential community level air quality impacts from debris removal operations. Next, we will hear from Dr. Jason Lowe, Deputy Executive Officer of the South Coast Air Quality Management District. Dr. Lowe and his team have been invaluable partners in expanding the already robust air monitoring network as we try to understand how debris and remaining ash may affect air quality in local communities. Dr. Lowe.
Right. Hello, Chair Randolph and members of the board. As Laura stated, my name is Dr. Jason Lowe from the South Coast Air Quality Management District. Our district is the regulatory agency responsible for improving air quality for large areas of Los Angeles, Orange, Riverside, and San Bernardino counties, including the Coachella Valley. South Coast AQMD air monitoring networks provided regional air quality information during the periods of the active fire. As part of the expanded air monitoring effort to evaluate more localized air quality in both the Eaton and Pacific Palisades burn scar areas, South Coast AQMD conducted 4 mobile surveys in January and February of this year. Overall, the findings of the mobile monitoring surveys showed concentrations for most pollutants were within background levels. However, in some locations, lead, arsenic, chromium, and nickel were above background levels. I do want to go back and say that these mobile surveys were conducted using vans equipped with instruments to measure a variety of air pollutants, including air toxic metals, volatile organic compounds, and they drove in and around the burn impacted areas. While mobile surveys do not sample long enough to add a location to establish risks to human health, they were used to identify potential hotspots and help guide where stationary monitoring sites may be needed. Following the mobile surveys, we worked closely with CARB to identify and establish sites for stationary air monitoring. The sites were chosen based upon mobile survey results, cleanup activity, proximity to sensitive receptors, such as residents and schools, meteorological conditions, and access to power and security for the monitoring equipment. Total, 5 air monitoring sites were established in February. Sites measured PM 2.5 and PM 10, providing data every hour. Air toxic metals and asbestos are being sampled and collected every 3 days and taken for expedited laboratory analysis. All of the results are posted on our wildfire data dashboard. This slide shows a screenshot of a dashboard that we've developed specifically for this expanded air monitoring initiative. The blue dots represent the 5 temporary air monitoring sites that we have established. Users may click on the locations to view current and historic air quality data for PM, air toxic metals, and asbestos, and also download the data and view laboratory reports for additional information. Air toxics that have established background levels are shown as shaded regions on the chart. Typical background levels are based upon concentration ranges measured at the Central Los Angeles Air Monitoring Station during MATES 5. MATES 5 is a comprehensive air toxics monitoring program used to characterize long-term regional air toxics levels in the South Coast Basin. For both burn areas, PM 2.5 and PM 10 so far have met federal standards. Likewise, most air toxics and asbestos samples collected have been within typical background levels. For some samples, air toxic metals such as arsenic, manganese, nickel, and chromium were above typical background levels, but did not pose an immediate health risk. Asbestos was detected at 2 of the Altadena sites on March 5th, and once at a Palisades site on March 11th, but has not been detected since. We'll continue to collaborate with the Debris Task Force and Air Quality Subgroup to evaluate and interpret incoming data, assess potential community health impacts, and publish results online as they become available. We appreciate CARB support in providing some air monitoring equipment, identifying potential monitoring locations, and organizing and coordinating efforts with all our recovery partners. In addition, we especially would like to acknowledge Chair Randolph's visit to Southern California in late January to see our team's work in action. We look forward to our continued partnership with CARB as we conduct enhanced air monitoring activities and provide critical air quality information to residents impacting the LA fires. I will now turn the presentation back to Laura, who will provide additional information on CARB's incident response activities.
Thank you, Dr. Lowe, for providing those details. We appreciate the hard work and dedication you and your team have demonstrated to support the LA wildfire recovery efforts. Now we'd like to share a short video showing the breadth of air monitoring activities in the LA region, and in particular, the Eaton and Palisades area. Video, please.
An extensive air monitoring network is collecting air quality data during the LA wildfire recovery efforts. Regulatory sites, shown as green circles, monitor for particulate matter, or PM, and other pollutants, including metals and air toxics at some sites. Green triangles show low-cost sensors in the region that are leveraged to monitor for PM in and around communities. Orange regions indicate burn areas of the Pacific Palisades and Eaton fires. Additional community air monitoring equipment has been deployed to the debris removal areas to evaluate PM, metals, and asbestos. At the debris removal sites, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers wear air samplers for personal exposure monitoring for a wide range of toxics, and PM is monitored up and downwind of the sites. Debris is packaged carefully to contain any ash or dust, then transported along truck haul routes, driving near stationary air monitors and sensors along the way. Once the trucks reach the landfills, the waste is offloaded and disposed of in accordance with the local and state requirements. This comprehensive air monitoring effort provides critical information for the public during these early stages of the LA wildfire recovery process.
We'd like to give a heartfelt thank you to the MLD staff and the communications office for preparing that video, and for MLD's very own Dr. David Ridley for providing narration. Next, we'd like to discuss other ways we are providing support and information to local communities. In addition to air monitoring, we're working through CARB's program to streamline the recovery process. This includes working with Enforcement Division's regulation compliance and expansion of the Supplemental Environmental Projects Policy. In response to concerns about the availability of portable generators, CARB published an advisory on January 10th that allows manufacturers, subject to certain restrictions, to sell 49 state certified generators through the end of June 2025. CARB will monitor both the sale of 49 state generators and on-the-ground needs for portable electricity to assess whether an extension of this advisory is needed later this year. With an extraordinary 4 million tons of combined debris from both fire footprints needing removal, more heavy-duty and off-road trucks, including out-of-state vehicles and equipment, will be required to support the scale of this operation. In line with the governor's emergency declaration for expedited debris removal, we've worked with fleet managers to assist and ensure compliance with CARB's regulations and emergency provisions while supporting recovery efforts. One need that communities and residents have recommended for future incidents is to expand the availability of indoor air filtration systems. This has opened up the opportunity to explore the development of a statewide supplemental environmental projects, which would allow important relief to be put in place more quickly. Public outreach has also been a critical element of CARB's recovery response thus far. Although local agencies are the primary conduit for communication with the public, CARB continues to support the community engagement efforts with South Coast AQMD and LA Department of Public Health to address community concerns going forward. During the fires and in the weeks immediately following them, we were able to leverage CARB's existing smoke resources to help get information to the public quickly. These include the Smoke Ready California webpage, California Smoke Spotter app, and the California Clean Air Centers map. Together, these resources provide information about current air quality conditions and visual guidance for how to protect yourself from smoke. Additionally, over the last several weeks, CARB staff have also developed new resources to address ongoing air quality concerns and questions as the recovery phase continues. In February, we hosted a collaborative EPA CARB webinar that provided critical information to answer many common questions related to air quality after the fires. Speakers from CARB, South Coast AQMD, California Department of Public Health, US EPA, the Army Corps of Engineers, and our very own Dr. Balmes addressed recovery operations, air quality concerns and monitoring, public health impacts, and health protective guidance. Created a new frequently asked questions webpage, answering common questions about smoke, ash, and air quality in the Los Angeles area. And we've also launched a new email to take questions from the public on air quality. With many air health concerns, CARB's research team is delving into important questions about the emissions and public health impacts of wildfires, with increasing focus on fires in the wildland-urban interface. For example, we're studying toxic emissions from structures and vehicle fires to better understand potential health and air quality impacts. Current research is focused on developing a clearer picture of health impacts from short-term smoke waves that can last several days. This study will help us understand health impacts such as hospitalizations for heart and lung illnesses. We're also helping support the work of UCLA and UC Davis researchers in Los Angeles that have conducted indoor and outdoor monitoring near the Eaton and Palisades fire areas. There are many questions about the long-term health impacts of wildfire smoke. To help answer these questions, we're initiating a contract with UC Davis to study health impacts in a Northern California group that experienced several smoke events. We are partnering with the LA Fire Health multi-institutional group led by Harvard University, doing a 10-year study and plan to help through in-kind and other support. We're also studying options to help people improve indoor air quality during and after wildfire events. For example, we're evaluating indoor filtration systems that can remove toxic chemicals in smoke. As you can see on the slide and throughout the presentation, we're working with a large number of partners to provide air quality information during the response and recovery process. The large scale and far-reaching impacts of the wildfire has required CARB to quickly build new partnerships and foster existing ones to support residents impacted by these fires. These partners range from federal, state, and local regulatory agencies, subject matter experts, and academic researchers. For example, we're working with local researchers at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory and California Institute of Technology to provide additional air quality information in the Eaton-Burn Scar area. We'd like to express our gratitude to South Coast AQMD for the continued partnership in providing critical air quality information to those impacted by the fires. We appreciate Dr. Lowe joining us today to highlight our collaboration and look forward to supporting recovery efforts together. The LA wildfires were a catastrophic event, destroying more than 16,000 structures and nearly 40,000 acres in the Eaton Palisades footprints. In the aftermath of those fires, CARB staff are continuing to work closely with our partners to both support a safe and rapid recovery and to ensure that we are better prepared for future events. Wildfires are becoming more frequent and intense due to climate change effects like rising temperatures and prolonged droughts. Fire risk will continue to increase, so we must lay the groundwork now to understand what toxic air contaminants are emitted from wildfires and potential impacts of those emissions. We must continue to stay vigilant and prepared and ensure that we can effectively monitor air quality so we can inform the public how they can best protect themselves, not just during a wildfire, but also during the recovery phase. Effective partnerships and sufficient resources are essential to the success of our incident response program, enabling us to deliver actionable information and safeguard public health during emergencies and incidents. CARB will continue to focus on building and maintaining these relationships to ensure we're prepared for future air quality incidents. Thank you, and we'd be happy to take any questions.
All right, thank you so much. Are there any public commenters who signed up to comment on this item?
We have one in-person commenter, Will Barrett. You want to give us just 1 minute? We'll get a timer up on the clock for you. You may begin.
Great. Hi, I'm Will Barrett with the American Lung Association. And really to start, I just want to say a quick thank you to Sylvia, to Gideon, to Davina for your service to the breathers of California. It's really critically important to recognize that great work, and thank you again. I appreciate it. And to the new members of the board, I really look forward to working with you to fulfill the mission of protecting and improving public health throughout California. So look forward to working with you on, as well. So for the CARB and district teams working on the research, monitoring, public education and engagement work around the wildfires and the response, thank you. Thank you for highlighting this critical work that you've just laid out. We know how vital these efforts are during and after these wildfire events, and it's something that the Lung Association, other nonprofits throughout the state have been asked to provide resources and information and education throughout these kind of tragedies. And this kind of work is really going to help, I think, everybody out in terms of giving more effective messaging and more effective data as quickly as possible. And really do appreciate that work and look forward to working and learning more about the SEP process for indoor filters, as well as just, again, the need for ongoing, accessible, effective public messaging around the harms during the fires, but especially during the cleanup, which is where we've got a lot of our questions as well. And then finally, just to reflect several of the member comments earlier, I just want to say thank you again. The research, outreach, and expertise held in this agency are critically important right now as our federal government is posing such a tragic, outrageous threat to public health through their actions and proposals. So thank you all and really appreciate all the efforts.
Thank you. That concludes our commenters for this item.
All right. Any questions and comments from the board? I guess I'll kick off with a thanks to Dr. Lowe for coming up and sharing all the incredible work that South Coast is doing. And thank you to all the staff. The level of coordination and dedication and collaboration has just been incredible. And I really appreciate all the amazing work and all the work that's to come, you know, to understand these impacts, to understand what the right solutions are. So really appreciate that. Questions or comments? Board Member Takborian.
Thank you. I just also wanted to add my thanks. This is an incredible tragedy, and I got a lot of phone calls from folks and emails, and the CARB information on, I know this is not the topic you're addressing right now, but I just want to give a shout out to CARB. I think that the resources that are available on the CARB website as it was in real time were incredibly useful to people. And I just want to make sure that people know that. And I know you're continuing to it, especially with the monitoring information. So thank you for that work. I also, there's a small analogy, I think some of you may remember in 2020 when Navy fire happened in San Diego and the ship burned, and it burned in the portside community of National City, but was next to Barrio Logan, and CARB really helped to evaluate that, the response to that. And as a result of that and the work with the San Diego Air Pollution Control District and the Port District, they started a pair program where they distributed monitors and air filters in people's homes. And just this week, Dr. Zavala from SDSU issued a report on the air filters in particular. And there's a bunch of results, but one of them is 76% of the respondents with health conditions that were using medication were using less medication as a result of having the filters in their homes. And there were also results that they felt better. So I think your idea that perhaps those filters could be more widespread, and none of us are going to be immune from having a wildfire probably somewhere near us. And so probably we all could utilize that resource. So I think that's good. And just anecdotally, I was very near the Eaton Fire area for my aunt's funeral. And on her very residential street, there was just a nonstop train of diesel trucks taking debris away from the fires, which is not at all normal. This isn't a street that trucks would be on. So I imagine, and you referenced that's going to be happening for a lot of folks that don't have this kind of traffic normally. So I appreciate that you were acknowledging that, and that more information needs out to folks that might not have previously thought they needed that kind of a resource.
All right, thank you. Mayor Gloria.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I would echo the comments of Member Takborian and appreciate her words. San Diego certainly has had its share of wildfires, and our hearts go out to our neighbors to the north as they deal with this tragedy and the recovery. I appreciate this information item, particularly as a new board member. And I was curious, obviously any expense and any effort should be taken to help folks in Los Angeles recover. But I'm curious, not just in terms of our programmatic or service response, what is the budgetary impact of this disaster response to our agency? Is any of that recoverable cost because of the state and federal declarations? And to the extent that there's a federal component to this, are we at any risk with regard to reimbursements from our federal partners?
Thank you, Board Member Gloria. Courtney Smith, Principal Deputy Executive Officer. Yes, because this is a federally declared emergency, and we have been supporting South Coast in carrying out its mission task, we have been able to document, and we plan to get reimbursement for the time that we have been spent supporting this particular disaster. That being said, of course, there are efforts underway to expand our resources for future events and also research that doesn't fall within the purview of a federally supported disaster that gets recovered. But we see that as an important investment in ensuring that we're addressing public health concerns for future incidents that we do anticipate to come.
Can you estimate at this point what this has cost the board?
Hi, Alora Franco. I'm an air pollution specialist, monitoring section. As of right now, we're still complying or compiling all the numbers. I think our numbers at the end of February were around 130,000. And we are working on March's numbers right now to kind of see what that kind of looks like. But I would say 130, we're probably under 200,000 as of right now.
Very good. Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right, Supervisor Ortiz-Legg.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to acknowledge what an incredible effort this is in regards to the public health in Los Angeles as they go through this tragedy and the cleanup. I also just want to relate it back to the last item that we had on our agenda, is that it's a really good opportunity to put forth on this community outreach effort that has just been completed. So here we have an example that was not necessarily in the plan, but it's going to be really important for us to be able to reach out to the communities that are so impacted that may not understand so many of the ways that they can monitor their air quality and get the utilities and tools that they need. So kudos to the staff, and I just wanted to make those comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Stern.
Thank you, Chair Randolph, and thank you to the staff for presentation. Couple questions on this one. One on the immediate emergency response piece. We've seen public reports certainly using non-CARB or government air monitoring that chlorine and lead levels were up to 40 times background levels. There was a Pico Rivera ascent site that showed 11 miles south of the burn zone that levels were there. I didn't hear any of that discussed in the presentation. Do we have the data we need to understand the full public health impact of the fire during the incident?
So this is Jason Lowe, South Coast CAQMD. Great question. So I believe you're referring to the Ascent program that's being run by some of the universities out there. So we are aware of that data. We actually collaborate with them, considering they are using one of our permanent air monitoring stations in Pico Rivera. We also have not only our regional air monitoring network, which does the US EPA methods, we have a station that's in central Los Angeles. So we have that data available on our website, but in short, it did show within the first few days of the fire, there were elevated levels of metals on the regional level that we were observing on that station. But those levels quickly declined after 3 or 4 days when the fire started back to typical background levels. In addition to that, we have some of our kind of non-EPA methods as well that was similar to what was done on the Ascent program at Pico Rivera. We have a real-time metals monitoring station over at our Huntington Park AB617 site, and that was also showing similar results, elevated levels of metals, but then declining back to more typical after 3 or 4 days.
So going back to my question, do we have the data we need to know what that multi-day exposure to those elevated metal levels was on public health in key sensitive receptor sites in the impacted areas?
Jason Logan. So on the regional level, there is data that's available, and that is on the EPA-based methods. So an evaluation of what those pollution levels could be done on a health basis. I want to stress that when exposure to metals is typically a long-term exposure, especially if you're looking at kind of long-term effects. There are also some short-term levels that can be looked at from the Office of Environmental Health Hazards Association. They do have some recommended levels in terms of safety health thresholds Those short-term ones, at least according to the data that we were looking at, were not exceeded. And as mentioned, the levels did decline after 3 or 4 days. So when you're looking at kind of that long-term exposure portion, there was a little less of that immediate concern. However, that did stem us to do the expanded air monitoring effort, because again, these air monitoring stations are more looking at regional air quality, whereas what we're looking for in the public and in the community that's impacted by the burn areas is to get more localized air pollution data, and thus the collaborative effort to be able to get with CARB to be able to get our stationary air monitoring sites out there in the community, so you get that more localized air quality for those metals, asbestos, and PM.
And so
I just wanted to.
Yeah, sorry, jump in. Yeah.
Hi, this is Elizabeth Shealy. I am the head of the research division at CARB, and I just wanted to add that we are also looking into research on the long-term effects. So one of the things that was mentioned in the presentation was the Be Safe cohort that we're looking at. And then the LA Fire Health Study is also looking to set up an LA specific longitudinal study. And we've been talking to them about that effort as well. So I just wanted to mention that.
Yeah, I appreciate you mentioning that because, you know, the Stanford research we saw from the wildfire smoke study from, you know, a few years back said even, you know, 3 days of exposure to for sensitive populations, maybe not on a metals basis, but on a PM basis, could have permanent genetic damage to lungs for, you know, say a child like I've got, a 1.5-year-old and a 3-year-old, that PM exposure over even a 2 or 3 day period is enough to permanently impact that child. So are you all saying that Angelenos did not have that level of exposure and therefore do not have those long-term risks, or do we not know yet, or can we not know?
Dr. Balmes actually has some thoughts about this topic, so I'm going to pitch it over to him, our public health member who is uniquely qualified to address this question.
Thank you, Senator Stern. So what we don't know very much about are the long-term health effects of wildfire smoke on especially kids and their development. That said, this wasn't really mostly a wildfire. These fires were massive urban fires. We also need to know more about long-term effects of urban fires where structures, man-made structures and motor vehicles are primarily the source of those heavy metals and asbestos that has been monitored. The work that you mentioned from Stanford involves PM 2.5, fine particulate matter, which is usually the major pollutant of concern from wildfire smoke. As Dr. Lowe said, the levels of PM 2.5 weren't that bad, despite the fact these were horrible fires. The way the wind went, most people were not exposed to high levels of PM 2.5, certainly on a regional basis. I mean, there was enough to cause people some acute health effects. I'm not trying to minimize that, but the Stanford work actually was mostly from exposures to PM 2.5 that were much higher. So I'm actually more worried about the long-term effects of toxic air contaminants that people may have been exposed to for a few days. And the studies that are starting to get off the ground, as Elizabeth mentioned, hopefully will continue to be funded and we'll be able to look at long-term health effects of these exposures. But I'm not particularly, I wouldn't want to connect the Stanford work with the current fires that much because it was on PM 2.5, which is a different kettle of fish than
Yeah, I appreciate that, Dr. Balmes. I mean, that's why I mentioned PM 2.5, but I was in the San Fernando Valley with super elevated levels of PM 2.5, which is not a regional issue. It's it's about a preschool, one particular sensitive receptor site at a time, and the lack of air monitoring, as the mapping showed throughout the region, at any sort of cohesive way to know what that exposure was on a multi-day basis, that's the concern, is that I don't know if we have the data to assure the public that everyone is fine. I mean, we made a personal decision to evacuate because of the air quality, and we couldn't get any public data as to what that AQI index was because they weren't monitoring that in our area. And so, anyway, I appreciate that there's long-term studies being done and that at a regional basis, we can make that sort of broad determination, but that belies the concentrations that occurred throughout the burn incident. And yeah, I'm just trying to find out from staff, do we have that data or not to make a sort of a public reassurance?
One
So it
last
sounds
comment,
like
Senator.
yes, is what we're saying, and that there isn't a concern at this point. Is that the fair conclusion to draw?
Well, just one more comment, Senator Stern.
Yeah.
The researchers that are working on health effects are incredibly skilled at spatial variation. Just for an example, one of my longtime colleagues, Michael Jarrett from UCLA, is involved with some of the research that's primarily funded out of Harvard, I guess. He will be able, using both the air quality monitoring data that the South Coast has, it's actually the best monitored place in the country, and all the low-cost monitors that Alora showed on a map, which greatly increase our ability to look at spatial variation. They will be able to recreate the spatial variation that you're concerned about. Whether it wasn't necessarily available as fast as you'd like it to be, and that's something we can think about for the future.
And also, Senator Stern, we are happy to make staff available for some further detailed
Thanks.
discussions.
Yeah, thank you for that. And the one other thing I just want to touch on this point, thanks for letting me go deep on it, but there's an ongoing issue during the recovery phase as well. And we saw in the mapping the ongoing monitoring that's occurring around certain landfill and debris removals. We know that there's pretty active monitoring around the burn zones where the immediate removal is occurring, but my understanding, at least from my discussions with Cali PA and the board, is that there is not the same level of air monitoring around the actual landfill sites, and that's sort of just based on defaults of whatever South Coast has sort of already available. But are there no, I'm thinking of sensitive receptor sites around all the key landfills where there is active concern and active debris, dumping going on. Is there an effort to make sure that every single landfill where there's phase 2 removal occurring has continuous air quality monitoring data? Can we rightly say that there's continuous air monitoring going on around all those sites? Is that something we can
So this
assure
is Jason
people?
Lowe from South Coast again.
Yeah.
So thank you for the question. So at the current moment, there is no air monitoring being conducted at all the landfills. I think right now it's our strategy is to focus on the air monitoring that is prioritizing where debris is not controlled, and that is in the burn scar area. So right now there's a lot of the debris, a lot of the dust, a lot of the movement of the material that's in the burn scar area that is not controlled. And that would be the likelihood of the highest exposure for community members and residences, et cetera. So we're emphasizing the monitoring in those areas. We also emphasize following the data. So we are looking at the data extensively to kind of see, are there levels that are so high that, if it is packaged and moved around, would that, potentially cause other issues elsewhere? But since we're at what we feel is the maximum, we are carefully evaluating that data with our partners, CARB, the Los Angeles Department of Public Health, California Public Health, et cetera. The other aspect too is that, at the landfills, there is a lot of, it's a permitted landfill, so they have to follow some procedures to be able to make sure that the emissions are reduced. They have on-site inspectors, not only from the local enforcement for landfills, but also there are inspections from the Department of Public Health, as well as the South Coast CAQMD, to make sure that those trucks are following those processes, to make sure that the debris from the wildfires is being disposed of appropriately with extra mitigation, making sure they're following the control rules with the winds, et cetera.
But just to, I appreciate the detail, but the answer to my question sounds like the answer is no. There is not continuous air monitoring occurring around the landfill sites. And so if you're a sensitive receptor within the immediate radius, you're on your own to check on the air quality.
Well, right now, we're fully deployed at the debris zone areas. So right now, there is no current plan. If there are kind of contractors that would be available to be able to do that type of air monitoring.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Senator Stern. Again, this is an informational item, so there will be no board vote on this. It is now time for open public comment. For those who wish to provide comment regarding an item of interest within the jurisdiction of the board that is not on today's agenda, the clerk will call on those who have submitted a request to speak card. And if you are joining us remotely and wish to comment, please click the raise hand button or dial *9 now. Will the board clerk please call on our public commenters?
Thank you, Chair Randolph. We will start the commenters with Assemblymember Pilar Schiavo. Untimed.
Hello, I think it's good afternoon now. Yes, it is. Thank you. You guys have a fancy hearing room, I have to say. This is very nice. Before everybody leaves, I want to say hello. I want to say thank you, first of all, to the hard work and dedication of South Coast AQMD, who has been doing so much incredible work around Chiquita Canyon landfill. And I know our community is incredibly grateful for their diligence and hard work and focus on what is a growing disaster in our community, which is one of the reasons why I'm here today. So incredibly grateful. Thank you. So I am Assemblywoman Pilar Schiavo. I represent California's 40th district, which is North LA County. And as I tell people these days, quite often, I am blessed to have 3 landfills in my district. I have Lopez Canyon, Sunshine Canyon, and the burning Chiquita Canyon, where we now have the only fire that is still burning in LA County. During the past year and a half, I've learned much more about landfills than I expected to due to the ongoing fire at Chiquita Canyon landfill. It was just reported recently when we did a legislative tour that it has tripled in size from 30 to 90 acres that's burning underground. And it's emitting methane, benzene, other toxins that are making our community sick. And if our community could stand up here so you know. They all came up today because they thought this was such an important issue for our community. And you're going to hear from them later about the impacts that they're experiencing because of this burning landfill next to within hundreds of feet of homes. Specifically, when it comes to landfills, the gas collection and control system that extract, convey, and prevent unnecessary and harmful releases of methane or other gases, I have learned a lot about. And when I found out that the regulation is designed to monitor and ensure effective containment of gases haven't been updated in 15 years, I was concerned, to say the least. I am very grateful that you're holding workshops on this issue and starting the process of moving these regulations forward. But communities next to landfills need you to speed up the process. We, 2010, I was, I think, using a flip phone probably, and Google Maps was just 5 years old. We know that technology has, and imaging data and data collection has grown leaps and bounds since then. And we need to make sure that our regulations are including that technology and really updated to reflect what's happening in the current day. Satellite images and remote sensing technologies of methane plumes from landfills such as Chiquita Canyon are readily available. We have seen the dark, black and purple images of our own landfill. The technology is accurate, viable, and residents deserve to see it for themselves. what sources of greenhouse gases and other harmful pollutants exist around them. In addition to remote sensing, communities deserve to have access to raw data in a streamlined fashion that can neither hide nor overly complicate the picture on the ground. You know, our neighbors are now having to become experts in what is the, you know, REL for benzene or, you know, methane or what, hydrogen sulfate, you know. They're having to become mini scientists. The superintendent of our schools, they have to check the air quality every hour to see if it's safe for children to go outside and breathe the air and play. And so we need to make sure that when we're making this information accessible to the community, that it is understandable, that they know if they see something benzene at 8 parts per billion, is that bad? Or is that okay for me? CARB, I think, you know, it's really important to have the same information for satellites or other remote sensing technology to quickly identify leaks and ensure landfills or third-party operators quickly repair them. And we know that when the proposed improvements to the landfill gas monitoring regulations would not have prevented the growing disaster at Chiquita Canyon, you know, I hope it would have helped us sense it sooner and been able to stop this growing disaster that we're now experiencing in our community. I hope that CARB will take a look on or take quick action on these regulations to ensure that these systems are effectively removing gas from beneath the landfill as designed, and ensure that we're not working, and if they're not working as designed, that the regulations have real teeth and real strength behind them that's necessary to get them fixed quickly when they are not working properly. My community, as I said, I know folks are here today. They took time off work, out of school, and hobbled together resources to be able to be here. They're going to be speaking today about this issue, and we're going to be watching really closely to see how this process unfolds and how quickly it moves. We are, you know, really grateful that you are moving this forward, and grateful that you are looking at moving it more quickly. And we just want to support that wholeheartedly any way that we can to update these regulations sooner rather than later. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Veronica Aguirre. All right, Veronica, if you want to give us just 1 minute to get the timer up and we'll get you going, okay? You may begin.
Okay. Good afternoon, Chair and board members. My name is Veronica Aguirre. I am from the community of Avenel, California. We also have the pleasure of having a landfill right near our community homes, schools, health centers. I'm here today with these warriors, I'd like to call them, because they've actually lived our biggest fear. The fear that my community faces every day is what this community is coming today to present to you. And so as I stand here today, I would like to ask CARB, you have the authority to push, these regulations and protect these communities. I heard Senator Stern mentioning earlier in regards to air monitors. That is important. Communities need access to this information. because that data is what's going to continue to protect us. Information that is also accessible and understandable, especially for farm working communities like the one that I'm from, that they're able to come and interpret that information and be able to present that to you and why they feel they have fear for themselves and their families. I also want to thank you for the opportunity to be here today and to speak and bring this to your attention. And I do stand in solidarity with these people. And also, I appreciated the presentation earlier in regards to community engagement. I also work as a community organizer for Central California Environmental Justice Network. So I do appreciate having programs such as that to be able to present to communities, especially frontline communities. But I also like to take the time to invite you to come to communities like ours so that you can meet the people personally and get an understanding of what they deal with. Thank you very much. Also, I'd like to mention Zoe Etchison. She's still on her way from class, so she's probably not going to be able to speak right now, but she maybe if they can put her at the bottom or something. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. That note, we do have a total of 32 speakers for open comments. We will move on to Sarah DeSlores. If you see your name, please begin to make a single file line at one of the platforms.
Hi, my name is Sarah Delorier. Good afternoon, Chair Randolph, board members and staff. I serve as the Director of Air, Climate, and Energy Programs at the California Association of Sanitation Agencies, or CASA, and representing more than 90% of the steward population of California. This sector is responsible for cleaning what society flushes to protect public health and environment, while also recovering renewable resources, including wastewater-derived biomethane, to achieve community resilience. Locally, SAC Sewer is implementing a biogen facility, combining fuel cell and engine technologies to further reduce emissions, increase renewable energy production efficiency, and lay the groundwork for hydrogen production. Since the adoption of the Advanced Clean Fleet Regulations and Board Resolution 23-13 in April 2023, CASA has remained engaged in meetings and workshops with staff supporting implementation, and we continue to participate in the AB 1594 amendment process. We greatly appreciated the board's resolution, recognizing the critical need for coordination across state agencies, as well as air districts and CASA for successful implementation of Senate Bill 1383 by identifying multiple reliable uses for non-fossil biomethane to maintain those markets while working to transition to use it in hard to decarbonize sectors. The interagency work group was also tasked with reporting back to the board by the end of 2025 on progress toward confirming alternative uses of biomethane. To our knowledge, the interagency work group has not been established yet, and we wanted to recall that the State Water Board's co-digestion capacity analysis of 2020 determined that available digester capacity across California's municipal wastewater sector could accept all divertible and digestible food waste, which could achieve 24 of the 40% methane reduction mandated by Senate Bill 1383. However, without assurance of the markets to beneficially utilize the byproducts of wastewater digestion, including the biogas, our members are not in position to accept that diverted food waste. Ooh.
Thank you. That
Thank
concludes
you.
your time.
We have a couple other members who will speak up as well.
Okay, next speaker will be Cindy Mahone. If I could please have Noam, Julia, and Carrie, Micah, and Stephen all form a line at one of the podiums. Thank you. Cindy, you may begin.
Thank you, Chair Randolph, members of the board. My name is Cindy Mann. I oversee the Clean Cars for All program with the SAC Metro Air District. We agree with Assemblymember Connolly's letter and want to emphasize that consistent funding is needed for the Clean Cars for All administering districts. We do support the California Drive Clean Assistance Program, but believe there's inconsistencies between the programs that may cause confusion, such as the no scrap requirement in areas where existing Clean Cars for All program exists. The SAC Metro Air District provides a robust Clean Cars for All program that provides a comprehensive EV charging and EV car package. We are currently processing applications and are estimated to run out of funds next year. We look forward to continuing to partner with the California Air Resources Board and Drive Clean Assistance Program staff to ensure the success of the statewide and district-run Clean Cars for All programs. We all share the mutual goal of continuing to ensure to meet the needs of applicants that need this program the most. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Noam.
Hello, Chair and board members and staff. Thank you very much. My name is Noam Elroy. I'm here on behalf of Californians Against Waste, Elders Climate Actions NorCal, Elders Climate Action SoCal, and Climate Action California. We welcome the recent announcement that updating the landfill methane regulation will be a priority for the board this year. And thank you for the discussion on everything happening around landfills in the state. We also appreciate the workshop in December and hope that those comments will be taken into consideration. We're glad to hear about the progress on satellite methane monitoring and the governor's new position as co-chair of America is All In. And in line with America is All In's goal of having emissions by 2030, we need impactful updates to California's landfill methane regulation as soon as possible. New regulations should be updated to, among other things, require more frequent full surface drone surveying of landfills, require all landfills that are regulated by the LMR to use the most effective methane monitoring technology, require earlier installation expansion of gas capture control systems, as well as frequent monitoring for gas collection system leaks, and reduce the threshold methane concentration limit from 500 ppmv to 200 ppmv. Importantly, these updates need to be carried out this year, and we hope for an even quicker and firmer timeline. Thank you for your continued time, attention, and work on these issues. We hope to see regulation soon.
Thank you. Julia Levin.
Good afternoon. Julia Levin with the Bioenergy Association of California. I'd like to follow up on the comments from Sarah Delorier with CASA. We too are hoping that the Air Board will move forward quickly and with robust public and stakeholder participation on the development of new biomethane markets, as you recognize the need for in the Advanced Clean Fleets resolution. You know how urgent it is to reduce short-lived climate pollutants, particularly methane and black carbon, which are also both very powerful air pollutants that harm public health. This board, as well as panels all over the world, have stated that the reduction of short-lived climate pollutants is the most urgent thing we can do to tackle climate change, because it's one of very few things that actually can benefit the climate right away. Despite that, California is way behind in meeting the requirements of SB 1383 and our broader climate goals. Developing the markets for biomethane is a critical tool to reduce short-lived climate pollutants. We are behind in large part because there aren't sufficient markets, and the markets that are there are going away quickly. The Biomat program for small-scale electricity from organic waste expires at the end of this year. The pipeline biomethane program at the PUC is not working. The LCFS is sending strong signals that this board wants to move biomethane out of the transportation sector to hard to electrify end uses. The market is fine with that, but there is no pathway to get to those hard to electrify end uses. We really need the board to move forward and to move forward with stakeholder and public participation through workshops, through a staff proposal that can be vetted. We are behind time to move forward on this. So we are asking the Air Board, please move forward this year as your resolution calls for, so that we can adopt those markets and make greater progress more quickly on short-lived climate pollutant reductions. Thank you.
Thank you. Carrie Frawling.
Good afternoon. Thank you for hearing us. I am a 20-year resident of Castaic and who lives 2.3 miles from our local landfill, Waste Connections, Chiquita Canyon landfill. CARB needs to update their regulations now. We need them strengthened, and we need the information public for all the neighbors and of landfills to know. Our current landfill has taken in fire waste in the past, and we have now seen what's happened with it burning and exceeding all kinds of emissions. They get thousands upon thousands of NOVs every year. We have drones that can monitor them and measure the methane and species out the harmful gas. You know that the current levels are not enough to keep us from getting sick. there are 10 neighbors in Valverde who they live so close to the landfill and they all have cancer. I live 2.3 miles away from the landfill and I've had cancer twice. I don't want the ones from the wildfire where they're receiving the wildfire or urban fire waste. We don't want them to go through what we're going through. The landfills need greater regulation. It's a business that they do the bare minimum to follow the rules, and they often break them to follow the laws. They are not watched very carefully. Our local landfill has been caught pumping leachate out into the Santa Clara River at night by a citizen. They videoed it. They do this when the EPA is sleeping. Please update your rules this month. The fire in Chiquita.
Thank you. That
keeps growing.
concludes your time.
Thank you.
Micah House.
So this is my son, Micah. He's very nervous and he didn't really want to speak. So do you want to say anything at all? No. All right. My name is Stephen. My name is Stephen House. I moved to Valverde in 1998 with my wife and my 1-year-old. We fell in love with the quiet and rich history and close community. We settled in and had 3 more kids. We moved there. We were about 1,000 feet away from the landfill boundary, but we were told, hey, don't worry, the landfill is closing. 2 expansions later, in 2022, the landfill had a leachate blowout in a hillside, causing numerous health issues in the community, as you've heard today. Over 10 of my close neighbors have had types of cancer. Unfortunately, in February of 2024, my wife was diagnosed with stage 3 breast cancer. We got her a plane ticket and she was going to come out here today, but unfortunately she was too sick and was not able to come. In July of 2024, my 19-year-old daughter was diagnosed with a rare autoimmune disease exacerbated by the landfill toxins and gases, where she must take allergy medications, carry an EpiPen, and an inhaler. My 13-year-old son, Micah, right here, he gets constant nosebleeds and he can't spend much time outside playing. I started suffering lots of sinus infections constantly that can't be explained by my doctor. During the 2017 landfill expansion hearings, I spoke and sent emails cautioning officials not to allow this latest expansion for fear that it would cause more harm to our community. LA County followed all the existing rules and approved the expansion. In 2022, my fears were realized when the landfill had an underground fire. It had grown to 40 acres, and last month, Cal EPA reported it's now over 90 acres with the potential to grow up to 160 acres, according to Cal Recycle. I call on CARB now to step up, act. Do not wait on years of research. Update your 15-year-old methane rules. Methane is a carrier gas. It carries lots of other gases that cause serious health issues. Use technology like drones, remote sensing capability, lots of other things you can do. Maybe if these rules were already in place. I started a little bit late. Is that okay?
Sorry, we're
I
gonna
got
go
like
ahead.
one sentence. Okay.
Next, Gabriela Faccio. I could please have Cher Arabalo, Nathan Kruger, O'Shea Orchid, and Adelaide Vasquez please form a line at one of the podiums.
Good
Gabriela.
afternoon. Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Gabriela Facio. I'm speaking on behalf of Sierra Club California. We represent over 500,000 members and supporters statewide. We appreciate the board's prioritization of updating the landfill methane regulation this year and thank the staff for the December workshop. We hope those comments, as well as the comments made here today, but especially the comments made here today by community who have traveled a ways to be here, are not getting paid today on a weekday to be here and make comments. So hoping that all of those are carefully considered. So I'm here to urge the board to consider that new regulations should address the following key issues, including but not limited to requiring all regulated landfills to use the most effective methane monitoring technology, expanding the frequency and scope of surface emissions monitoring, using advanced remote sensing technologies to cover entire landfill surfaces, mandating earlier installation, expansion of gas capture systems, and frequent monitoring for leaks. Expediting methane reduction is one of California's most effective actions to limit near-term global temperature rise. This urgency aligns well with the governor's recent commitments to the America is All In initiative and the satellite data project to track and reduce methane emissions, which is critical in addressing impacts to both public health and the environment. On behalf of Sierra Club California, we appreciate your attention to these issues and hope to see these strong regulations implemented soon. Thank you.
Thank you. Chair Arabalo.
Good afternoon, and thank you for hearing us today. My name is Cher. I live in Castaic, California, and I am here to ask CARB to set a clear public deadline for updating its landfill methane rule, just because we can't wait any longer. We've waited 2 years, 2.5 years for regulations to be updated on our situation in Castaic and Valverde, and the fire has tripled in size. It's gotten out of control, and we really need your help. I bought my home in 2022, had no idea that this was happening, 2.5 miles from my house. I soon became sick. My husband was sick. My daughter, who graduated, came home from college. She became sick. She actually had to move out recently because she was too sick. I have 5 large medical grade air filters that run in my home continually. Imagine the electricity bills behind that. And I have solar. The only good thing about this thing is I've met some wonderful members of this community and heard their stories. And if you heard all of their stories, you would definitely take action to try to protect them. And we appreciate what you do. But some of these kids are getting nosebleeds, they're getting headaches and migraines in their schools. And I'm just asking that CARB acts to improve landfill methane regulations for the community, because we need to leave a better legacy for these kids and for our children and for our children's children. And I'm asking that CARB take immediate action to protect the families like mine and the thousands of other Californians living near landfills. I really think it's a great idea to do the monitoring around the other landfills, because currently, I know you were talking about PM 2.5s with the fire. We can't get a 2.5 is one level of it, but the gases that come with the methane, that's harder to measure. And if I can look at a monitor and I can see, oh, there's benzene's at this level and the VOCs are here, I know to stay inside, and the kids know, and we appreciate your time.
Thank you. Nathan Kruger.
Good afternoon. My name is Nathan Kruger. I'm with Kruger Law Firm. Our firm represents over 1,000 victims of the Chiquita Canyon landfill. I know OSHA Orchid, and there's other firms that are representing clients as well. I will say, working on this case, it's been a challenge, when you have disasters like the LA wildfires, which are so awful, happen. It's really hard to get really any understanding of the silent killer that's happening at Chiquita landfill. I mean, it doesn't make front page news. There's no flames. There's no destroyed homes. There's just invisible gas. And those gases, as you know, are methane, benzene, dimethyl sulfide. What we're advocating for today is stronger methane controls. What I wanted to do is highlight a little bit of the timeline working on this case and quantitatively how it's affecting these victims and our clients. 2 years ago, in the beginning of when the reaction was really beginning to expand, we were getting calls. People were having bloody noses. They were having allergy-like symptoms, and it's awful, terrible symptoms. But as the year goes on, asthma, there was increase in number of asthma diagnoses, which we know is heavily associated with methane exposure. So if you look at our clients if I'm looking at it quantitatively, about 14% of our clients have been diagnosed with asthma. If you look at the national incidence of asthma in the US, it's about 7.4%. So we have double the incidence of asthma with our client base that lives within 3 to 4 miles of the landfill. So just moving on more aggressively, we have 5 acute myeloid leukemia patients that just diagnosed this last year. That's 40 times the incidence of leukemia in the US. So it's a silent killer. This is happening fast. It's expanding. So you have to act fast. You have to give the AQMD more teeth to control this early on. So please pass further regulation. Thank you.
Thank you. O'Shea Orchid.
Hi, my name is Osha Orchid. This is my daughter, Adelaide Vasquez. As Nathan mentioned, I'm one of the attorneys working, representing many of the community members here, working on the litigation, also working on on behalf of Citizens for Chiquita Canyon Closure, an organization which really just means our community who cannot let this continue to happen and has had to take legal action. All of this is happening because we don't have enough regulations in place to begin with. And that's why the situation at the landfill has gotten so out of control, because it wasn't caught early enough. We learned years later through litigation, through the agencies finally getting involved, that we have a serious problem. But the problem is now we're being told this is maybe an unstoppable problem, that we could go on for decades having benzene, having hydrogen sulfide, methane at just uncontrollable levels. As Assemblymember Schiavo mentioned, it's 90 acres that's basically on fire, and that's all coming into our community. As Nathan mentioned, we're seeing elevated levels of all kinds of concerning conditions. I'm basically at this point becoming a cancer researcher, spending time with public health doctors from across the country who are looking into the levels of cancer. And we know it's too many because when I started this case, as Nathan mentioned, we had some healthy clients, people that were just coughing, getting bloody noses, saying they experienced a headache. And now we have more people saying, my 3-year-old was diagnosed with cancer. I'm in Children's Hospital. We can't figure out what's wrong with us, but we do test after test. And this is because of toxic exposure to these chemicals. It's imperative that people act now. And what you guys can do for us is you can get regulations into place that cause other communities like Avenal, like other landfills in the LA area that really need it to have monitoring in real time that's going to make it so the community can protect themselves by leaving the area, and the landfills can do what they need to do to clean things up when there's a problem. Thank you.
Thank you. Adelaide Vasquez.
Hi, my name is Adelaide Vasquez. I go to Castaic Middle School. I cannot tell you how many days I've gone home or just not going to school because I felt sick from the landfill. It's a big problem. One time recently, I got sick and I had nausea. I felt like I was going to throw up. I was so lazy. It was like the worst thing ever. And it wasn't the flu. I know it wasn't the flu. I didn't have a fever. I didn't have anything like that. One day I woke up, I had a nosebleed so bad, like it lasted 25 minutes. Nothing would help me. It just would not stop. And this is a big problem. I don't want people to live in fear of getting cancer one day just because of a dump. I can guarantee you that like a lot of people have had cancer in my neighborhood, and it is a big problem. I don't want to live in fear of my friends getting cancer or me getting cancer or anyone that I know getting cancer because of a freaking dump. It's a very bad issue, and I think it needs to get fixed now.
Thank you. Randall Elkins.
Hi, my name is Randall Elkins. I moved to Val Verde in 2016 with my wife and young children. We chose to buy a home in this community because it had great schools and a small town feel. While we were signing our closing documents with the home, we were informed that there was a landfill close by, but not to worry. It was closing the next year. A year passed, the landfill did not close. Instead, it was given an extension by LA County to expand for another 30 years. In early 2023, we started noticing foul-smelling odors. We started having weird health symptoms. And when I talked to neighbors, they were all having similar symptoms. My kids come home from school daily with headaches, skin irritations. They get severe nosebleeds, ear infections, eye infections, and they constantly are congested. My wife regularly gets severe headaches and joint pain. My body has broken out into like hives all over that couldn't be explained by doctors. We don't let our children play outside. We no longer do barbecues with friends and neighbors. I can't take care of my garden as much as I'd like to. And we've seen several animals die on our property in the last few years. I bought my kids a trampoline and a play structure, and it just sits abandoned across the street or outside because the area is not safe to play. We urge you to implement stricter regulations to landfills and protect the health and safety of nearby communities. How is it even possible for a landfill to be allowed to destroy so many lives? This should never have happened. I am pleading with you. CARB needs to come out with a public deadline for updating a landfill methane rule as soon as possible. My family can't afford more delays. I am frustrated that the state of Colorado, which has a much less resource than California, is moving much faster. Thank you.
Thank you. Kaylee Elkins.
Hi, my name's Kaylee Elkins, and I'm 11 years old. I live in Valverde, very close to the landfill, and I go to school only a few miles away. The landfill has stopped me from becoming a normal kid. Me and my brothers can't play outside, ride our bikes, or even have friends over. We have to drive away to even go hang out. We can't have birthday parties or summer barbecues at our house. We can't even open our windows. I get headaches at school and my skin gets itchy. And sometimes I feel like I can't even breathe. A few of my pets have died suddenly in the last year. My parents have talked about moving to get us away from the landfill. Thinking about this makes me sad because I would have to leave all my friends in my dance studio. It is not fair that we have to move and suffer because of the landfill's mistake. Why do we have to leave everything we love when it's their mistake? Please make stricter regulations that hold landfills accountable to keep communities safe. Thank you.
Thank you. Nathan Elkins.
Hi, my name is Nathan Elkins. I'm 8 years old. When I talk to my friends, we agree that we would rather get hurt than continue to smell the landfill. And get sick. If I fall on the playground and get hurt, I know I will get better and I will be okay. But we know that the landfill problem is not going away for a long time. And it will keep making us sick. Please help us and stop the landfill from making me sick. Thank you.
Thank you. Luke Elkins.
So when I had to go outside, the air is not good. Go inside, clean my room, play.
Words from a 5-year-old.
Jennifer Elkins.
Hi, my name is Jennifer Elkins. I'm a resident of Valverde and also a community organizer for people living near Chiquita Canyon Landfill. Chiquita Canyon Landfill has been making us sick for many years, and the landfill operator says they're following all regulations. This tells me that the regulations are flawed. Our community was just informed that the reaction is almost tripled in size. I am deeply concerned for my family, my neighbors, and especially the children in my community. People are getting very sick, and our quality of life has been stripped from us. I recently made the decision to transfer my 3 children out of our school district because I fear for their health and safety. I fear for their future. Children are playing outside during recess and PE and are exposed to a cocktail of toxic chemicals like benzene, toluene, hydrogen sulfide, and more daily. Then they come home and they're exposed to the same toxic air in their own backyards. Clean air is a basic human right, and my community doesn't have that. I've suffered 2 miscarriages since moving to Valverde and just learned that this is a commonality amongst the women in my neighborhood. Many of my neighbors have been diagnosed with cancer and rare autoimmune disorders. These are life-altering health consequences. Methane is 80 times more potent than CO2 at warming the planet, and it carries dangerous pollutants like benzene and hydrogen sulfide. So CARB can really make a difference for people if it updated its requirements for landfills so that more gas was captured. I listened to the 6-hour-long CARB webinar on landfill emission standards back in December, and I was appalled that you handed the mic to landfill operators for hours to tell us they didn't need more regulations, that they were doing enough already, and how new regulations could hurt them financially. CARB gave no time to people who are the most harmed. My community is just one example that enough is clearly not being done. This is so disappointing, and even worse, CARB continues to do nothing. I am asking you to start the process for updating your landfill rule as soon as possible. Set a clear public deadline for updating your landfill methane rule. CARB has a duty to protect lives. We urge you to enforce stricter regulations and oversight for landfills. Put people and their health first. Hold landfill operators accountable and ensure that they aren't polluting communities. Regulations haven't been updated in over 15 years, and it's residents that are paying the price. Thank you.
Thank you. If we could please have the next 5 speakers form a line at one of the podiums. We have Layla Martinez, Clarissa Baltazar, Rihanna Gazidrian, Raul Engel, and Katie Dalton. And Layla Martinez, you may speak.
My name is Layla Martinez and I am 12 years old. And ever since I moved back to Castaic, I've been experiencing horrible headaches, nausea, and random dizziness almost every day. It's affecting how I do in school because I'm going home a lot. It's not safe to go to school anymore because of how bad the air quality is over at my school. I need to switch school districts to a school in an area that is not as affected by the landfill, just so I can be safe. My grades are being affected because I'm missing so much school from feeling sick. Please make stronger regulations to stop the landfills from polluting our cities. Young kids shouldn't have to grow up being sick constantly and dealing with disgusting odors. Thank you.
Thank you. Clarissa Baltazar.
Hello, my name is Clarissa Baltazar. The Chiquita Canyon landfill has caused my family many health issues. I lived in Valverde previously, very close to the landfill. During my time living there, I experienced fatigue and severe migraines to the point of it being a struggle to get out of bed for days at a time, which wasn't normal for me. I now live in Castaic, 7 miles away from the Chiquita Canyon landfill. I still experience the same symptoms. My son attends a local middle school and suffers with migraines and fatigue. My daughter's elementary school is just a few miles away from the landfill. She is constantly experiencing the same symptoms as myself, but much worse. Sorry. She's also getting bloody noses while at school due to the terrible gases and odors coming from the landfill. My children always have to come home early from school or stay at home sick for the day. We had to make the tough decision to take my daughter out of our local school district for the next school year out of fear that the middle school isn't far enough from the landfill. We can't enjoy being outdoors anymore. We are basically forced to stay indoors or risk getting sick. I am worried for our health and safety, current and long term. The landfill methane rule hasn't been updated in over 15 years. Our local residents, as well as residents living near other landfills in California, shouldn't have to suffer. Our health matters. We need CARB to bring landfill regulations up to date immediately. Thank you.
Thank you. Rihanna Gazidrian. Apologies for mispronouncing any names.
Hi, I'm Rihanna Gazarian. I'm here to mostly support. Raul has lived here for much longer, but as someone that frequently visits and comes in, I've noticed that I'm very sensitive to the environment around me. And, you know, anytime I come in right over that hill, my eyes start burning. I feel like my lungs are on fire. And it's just really like a night and day difference. But I'd like to give the rest of my time to Raul.
Thank you. My name is Raul. Good afternoon, Chair and board members. My name is Raul. Like I said, I'm a resident, a parent to 2 young children that go to local schools in the area, Castaic and Live Oak. Live Oak is the closest. And as well, I'm a teacher as well. I stand with you today with a heavy heart, but also a determined spirit. We're here because of our homes, our health, and our future are under threat. We're here because of the harm happening right now in the shadow of Chiquita Canyon, and it must stop. For far too long, the residents near Chiquita Canyon have endured the unbearable. The air we breathe, the water we rely on, the very ground beneath our feet is being compromised by this landfill. And we're witnessing firsthand the devastating consequences of this toxic pollution on our health and well-being. And I fear for my children's health in the future as well. This is not a distant problem. It's happening right now, as I've told you, in our community. And students in my community are getting bloody noses. Some residents are developing nerve damage. I recently moved back to Valverde, and now I'm getting green mucus buildup. I grew up there as a young child, never had this issue until recently. I'm a runner as well. I like to run in the area. I can't run outside anymore. I have to drive out of the town in order to do that. And my kids can't go play outside, just like some of the kids mentioned here. It's affecting their well-being. Now, this isn't about the Chiquita Canyon. It's about also setting a precedent. We must send a clear message that toxic landfill pollution will not be tolerated in any community across California. We demand that California Air Resource Board set a clear and firm deadline to update the methane regulations. We need a robust standards and stringent enforcement to ensure that the landfill operators are held accountable for controlling their emissions and protecting our air quality. We're not asking for much. We're simply asking for the right to breathe clean air, drink safe water, and live in a healthy community. And we are asking for our leaders to
All right,
prioritize the well-being.
thank you, Raul.
Thank you for hearing me out.
Katie Dalton.
I am Katie Dalton. I'm a 30-plus year resident of Val Verde. I'll go anywhere to ask anybody for help on our problem, and I'm here today to try and get help, whatever that is. A possible fix might be sell your home and move away. Our property value has gone way down because of this. Sell my home for nothing compared to what I should get for it. Move where? That money, I can't buy something somewhere else in California, on top of the fact I don't want to move. I love Val Verde. I've been there 30 years. It's my home. Every time I come to a meeting, including this one, where we're all gathered from Val Verde, I learned something new about our health. Today I learned, which I didn't know, I thought it was just me. I have foggy vision. Imagine 6 other people I talk to have foggy vision, along with a long list of other physical problems that we all have. I keep learning over and over. I thought it's just me that has these problems. No, it's many of us. And we need help. We need to go somewhere that'll listen to us and help us. Doctors won't touch us. They don't want anything to do with us with these physical problems. They say, oh, okay. Sinus issues I've had for 3 years now. Not one doctor has offered to help me. I'm now doing it on my own, over-the-counter stuff, which is finally helping because I'm being proactive. Why can't someone else be proactive? We need help. We're dying, literally dying. We need help from somebody somewhere. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Tim Williams, but if I could have Sarah Stinson, Darcy Stinson, Elizabeth Jeffords, and Yasmina Valdivia, please form a line at one of the podiums. Tim, you may begin.
Hello, everyone. My name is Tim Williams, longtime resident of Val Verde since 1959, that's 65 years or so. When I first came to Val Verde, it seemed like when I was 6 years old, going on 7, there was always an issue with Val Verde as far as challenges. From the park director, a guy named Leron Purdue would always complain about we didn't have enough shuffleboards or ping pong balls, stuff like that. So Val Verde has always had its challenges. I guess I'm here to speak on the historical place of Val Verde itself. Val Verde was created in 1924, 101 years ago. We tried to have a parade last year, but we couldn't do it because of the landfill, because of the odor. Val Verde was created because of the Jim Crow laws way back, and so 1924 it was created. So I went to school from Castaic Elementary, Placerville Junior High School, Hart High School, and I graduated in 1971. In 1972, the landfill was created. So it's been going on, what, 53 years or so. So it has been one of Val Verde's top priorities as far as a challenge. As some of my friends were talking about things going on, cancer, what have you, a lot of ailments. I haven't been affected personally, but I know of other people who have. My girlfriend, Leah Whitaker, she passed away like 2023, at the end of 23, from cancer. So I don't know if it was from that or what, but all these stories are real. So hopefully we can have something done, a state of emergency for Val Verde, for our little community, which we all love. Thank you.
Thank you. Sarah Stinson?
Hello, my name is Sarah Stinson. My husband and I bought our first home in Val Verde as newlyweds in 2008. Over time, I suffered lethargy due to the Chiquita Canyon landfill. I was tired. I'd always have to call in work sick because I couldn't get up out of my bed. I soon had to quit my job and join my husband and work from home. Later on, I was diagnosed with chronic depression and anxiety. I do take medicine for those things. I became less active in my social group. I was literally a prison in my own home. I didn't want to see my friends or even my family at times. It damaged my marriage and really put a lot of stress on my marriage. Thank God we are still together. My husband, he suffers from cancer, and now my best friend and neighbor, Stephen House's wife, has stage 3 cancer, breast cancer. It's so hard to see her surgery after surgery. She is my hero. And I just ask that we could have cleaner air, that we don't have to breathe in these toxins, that our children don't have to suffer nosebleeds and headaches, and that we could just be understood for once and not be called crazy. And I pray that we could all just have clean air, and it's not that hard. We now have to leave our house and live in a smaller home, and I'm now like dealing with mover's grief. So thank you.
Thank you. Darcy Stinson?
Hi, I'm Darcy Stinson. I appreciate the board. I sit on the Castaic Town Council. I've been the president of the Community Advisory Committee. I understand a lot of the stuff that's going on. I should not know all the things that I do because I didn't go to school for it. I'm sorry when I say this, but I think because of CARB and other regulatory agencies that are not doing their jobs, people like myself have cancer. I'm a disabled veteran. I serve to protect all of you, everybody in the United States. I have a lot of friends that didn't come home. I'm home. And I'm lucky and I'm thankful for that. But I'm in Castaic, and I have cancer, a high mortality, very aggressive cancer, and I'm going to die. My doctors tell me that I need to get my affairs in shape, in order. This, you guys, I hope understand, because I learned at Cal EPA meeting that tremors, I've gone to multiple doctors. They don't know why I have tremors. They don't know why I have brain fog. They don't know why I have blurred vision, nothing. Cal EPA, they said benzene poisoning causes brain fog, causes tremors, causes all the effects that I'm having. My house is less than 1,000 feet from the landfill. If there was regulations put in place that were strict, that were not for the benefit of the landfills to create, I mean, they make billions of dollars. Please help us and please help other communities. It's dire need. Please don't let them be like me.
Thank you. Elizabeth Jeffords?
Thank you. Hi, I'm Elizabeth Jeffords. I live in Castaic. I've only been there 5 years. I moved relatively close, so still within 5 miles before that. But as soon as we moved into my house, I got really, really sick. And it's been years, and we haven't known what or what's causing it. I have all of the symptoms that were already mentioned, and I have a lot of things to talk about. But after hearing what everyone has said here, I think it's pretty clear we need to do something now. I'm very sick. No doctors can tell me what's going on. No one can save me. I couldn't get up to go to work, and unfortunately, I have my own business. So working from home is impossible, and therefore I cannot make an income. I cannot contribute to society. I cannot do my part. I'm forced, and I'm stuck in my house. I have a for sale sign. No one's buying. I can't get out. We need stricter policies put in place so that people like me, unsuspecting, don't move into these neighborhoods. If you want to have these landfills make all this money and control the grounds that we walk on, then don't put houses next to them. We need strict policies in place, and we need public awareness. These monitors that I have to check every single minute of my life have become my life to see if I can go outside. But it doesn't stop there. It's not just with the smell. I went 3 years without smelling anything before I knew there was even a landfill that existed 3 miles from my house. We need to have stricter policies in place and regulations and not allow these landfills to self-regulate themselves and tell you guys what to do and what's harmful, because they're making the money and we're getting sick. And I'm literally paying the price for it with my life and my life savings. I moved here to California 25 years ago. I thought you guys were the groundwork in environmental everything and health. And I see everybody running outside. And I used to be a track runner. I can't run. I can't even walk. I have a walker in my house. I can't breathe. You need to help us. Thank you.
Thank you. Yasmina Valdivia.
Yes, hi, my name is Yasmina Valdivia. I'm a 48-year and multi-generation Valverde resident, and I serve on the Valverde Civic Association. I stand here with my family and representing the residents of Valverde. My husband, Jose Valdivia, is here. My mother, Delia Yoguez, my son, Norberto Rios, and my granddaughter, Yasmina Rios. We are here to express our deep concerns over the toxic chemicals we are breathing and being exposed to on a daily basis. These harmful toxins are emerging from Chiquita Canyon landfill. Poor landfill management comes with a high cost to our health and well-being. And California residents like my community of Valverde are paying the price. I've seen firsthand the impact of health-harming chemicals and odors that leak through these facilities, including cancer, migraines, respiratory problems, burning eyes, nausea, stomach problems, heart palpitations, thyroid, female reproduction organ problems, and more. CARB must act quickly to protect the well-being of communities like Valverde. CARB must update its 15-year-old outdated landfill methane standards and require operators to adopt proven, effective strategies that deliver cleaner air. We urgently need better management and regulations by making 21st century updates. CARB needs to require drone monitoring to find methane leaks and could dramatically reduce the emissions and deliver cleaner air to communities like Valverde. And my husband, Jose Valdivia, is going to finish my speech, unless I'm able to continue.
We have Delia Yoguez next.
Okay.
Mi nombre es Delia Yoguez, soy residente de Valverde por 50 años y las toxinas que han estado saliendo del basurero en realidad me han impactado no solamente personalmente a mí, a mi esposo, a mis hijos, a mis nietos, a mis bisnietos, porque toda mi familia vive ahí y a mí.
My name is Delia Yoguez, and I've been a resident of Valverde for over 50 years, and the toxins have been very harmful to my husband, my children, my grandchildren.
Y a mí los doctores me han diagnosticado manchas en los pulmones, padezco de neumonía, tengo alergia en mis manos porque en realidad
The doctors have diagnosed me with some spots in my lungs. I've had pneumonia, and we have had a lot of problems. And
Y yo estoy presa en mi casa porque yo no puedo disfrutar de mi yarda, no puedo salir para afuera porque la alergia me llega, la neumonía, no puedo respirar.
I have allergies and I am in a prison in my own house because I cannot get out. I will have severe allergies as soon as I step out of my house.
Sí, es todo. Gracias.
That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Jose Valdivia?
I'm Jose Valdivia. I'm living in la community of Valverde for the last 11 years. I want to continue my wife's speech. So my family and I are experiencing many symptoms due to toxic chemicals. Myself, we bought our home and had plans and goals with the thought of being able to enjoy our home for many, many years. Those plans and dreams have been shattered. Our 2024 holiday we're spent in the hospital with my 31-year-old daughter when we went through a 15-hour surgery. 3 medical teams in coming out of the surgery and included coma and straight to ICU. She started to have problems with her reproductive organs at the age of 15. My son at the age of 15 was diagnosed with diverticulitis. In 2023, had a partial colectomy. My wife and I, we have asthma, has worsened since living in Valverde for the past 11 years. I'm now on 2 inhalers, oral inhalers, plus medication, and also got diagnosed with thyroid. Sorry. Also, my father-in-law, they have so many issues, health issues too. My father-in-law gets, frequently nosebleeds, skin rashes. When my granddaughter comes to visit us, she can even stay outside. She have a nosebleeds, heart palpitation, rashes, nausea, stomach cramps, joint muscles. Thank you, please help us on this issue. Thank you.
Thank you. And we have one last in-person speaker, Zoe Etchison. Okay, we'll go ahead and move on to our Zoom commenters. Currently have 8 with their hands raised. David Rothbart, I have activated your mic. You may unmute and begin.
Am I on mute now?
Yes, you're good.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I'm David Rothbart with Clean Water SoCal. Clean Water SoCal represents 80 public wastewater agencies in Southern California. Our members manage wastewater for about 20 million people. First, our members would like to express their support for the comments made by Sarah Delorier with CASA. The wastewater sector is required to treat society's waste 24/7, 365 days a year. In other words, we can't request the public stop flushing their toilets. The process of treating this waste creates a non-fossil fuel, which is known as digester gas, and this gas should be used productively. Unfortunately, most of this wastewater-derived gas cannot be directed into the natural gas pipeline as envisioned by staff. The legislature passed SB 1383, which will divert food waste from landfills to wastewater treatment plants and could exponentially increase wastewater-derived non-fossil fuel generation. The wastewater sector explained this dilemma to the CARB board during the adoption of the Advanced Clean Fleet Regulations, and we appreciate the board's resolution 23-13 that recognized the need for coordination meetings with other state agencies, including CASA, to implement SB 1383 and SB 1440. The resolution directed staff to prioritize policy discussions related to SB 1383 and SB 1440 implementation regarding how to transition biomethane into hard-to-decarbonize sectors. To our knowledge, the interagency work group has not been established. We respectfully request that this work group be established as soon as possible. Without your support, the wastewater-derived non-fossil fuel is going to be burned in flares rather than be used beneficially. Thank you for your support.
Thank you. Craig Murray, I have activated your mic. You may unmute and begin.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, board members, staff. Thank you for your service. My name is Craig Murray. I'm a board director of Las Colinas Valley Sanitary District in Santa Fe. We serve approximately 32,000 residents. We're the largest public solar power producer in Marin County. We have developed a modern water recycling facility that serves the region and implemented a renewable natural gas facility for combined heat and power, as well as transportation fuel and a CNG fueled heavy vehicle for essential services to our customers. California wastewater sector is key to helping achieve goals of SB 1383 that are upon us. Las Colinas Valley Sanitary District is looking at a regional biosolids facility to serve our region as well. California wastewater agencies will need more tools, not less. Developing markets for biogas is important. Request to CARB is to hear my fellow associates in CASA and those that provide local services and to keep space available in the ACF regulations and work for bioenergy and for the wastewater sector and allow for an interagency work group to address SB 1440 and additional future transitions of biomethane to hard to decarbonize sectors. Thank you.
Thank you. Robert Middlestat, I have activated your mic. You may unmute and begin.
Thank you. My name is Bob Middlestead. I'm a co-founder of E-Bike Access, which is a Marin County-based nonprofit focused on increasing the use of legal e-bikes and curbing the illegal throttle devices. CARB has an e-bike incentive program, which has a very laudable goal, which is to help lower income people buy e-bikes. But it also has a serious problem. Whoever drew up the list of eligible e-bikes included numerous motorcycles that don't meet California e-bike requirements. So CARB unintentionally is subsidizing and encouraging the purchase of dangerous motorcycles that are not street legal. This is not just a bad look for CARB and an improper expenditure of state funds, but it also exposes at least the purchasers to legal liability and to the risk of serious injury. CARB didn't do this deliberately or knowingly. It's more difficult, though, to say the same thing about the project administrator, Pedal Ahead. Its current point of contact is Scott Anderson, who worked as the chief marketing officer for a company called Juice Bikes. Juice Bikes makes motorcycles, not e-bikes, and one of their models is included on the eligible list of e-bikes, along with many others. I've talked recently with CARB staff. I believe they're now taking this seriously and want to get to the bottom of it. My written comments provide some suggested remedial actions, including a full staff report on how this happened and potentially a referral to the Attorney General to consider investigating consumer fraud by these manufacturers. I note finally that there's a consumer fraud class action in Marin Superior Court against one manufacturer, Super 73, and it might provide a model for the AG to consider. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Catherine Blauvelt, I have activated your mic. You may unmute and begin.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair Randolph, members of the board. Thank you for the opportunity to speak this afternoon and provide public comment regarding the updates to the LMR. My name is Catherine Blauvelt. I'm Circular Economy Director for Industrious Labs. We work to decarbonize heavy industry, including waste, and to mitigate and prevent harm to the communities that live around those industries. And we work across the country, including in California. I've also worked in multiple states in rulemakings and updates to their flawed and outdated regulations. California has landfills that are the sleeping giant of the climate crisis. And the air emissions that come out of landfills and that are regulated through the LMR are a mixture of methane, of carbon dioxide, benzene, the list goes on. Unfortunately, there's a shameful legacy of injustice in how those landfills were placed in the state of California. 70% of California's highest emitting landfills when it comes to methane are by communities that are over half BIPOC within 1 mile of that landfill. That is the state of play in California today. The good news is that CARB has done a lot of research, and there has been a lot of technological improvements that mean we don't have to live with the status quo. I just want to read an U.S. Environmental Protection Agency report that as you know, the U.S. EPA regulates air emissions of landfills and requires landfills to not exceed certain allowances of methane. This is what the EPA wrote to a landfill operator that was in violation of methane exceedances. The EPA has found that the violations have caused or can cause excess emissions of hydrogen sulfide, volatile hazardous air pollutants, volatile organic compounds, and methane. Hydrogen sulfide can lead to irritation, headaches, nausea, and respiratory stress. All that to say, when you regulate for methane, you also help people. Please help the people around the state of California.
Thank you. Claire Sullivan, I have activated your mic. You may unmute and begin.
Thank you. Good afternoon to you, Chair Randolph, and thank you to you and to the board. My name is Claire Sullivan, and I'm here today on behalf of the City of Roseville Department of Electric Utilities in support of all my CASA colleagues' comments. We are asking CARB to activate the implementation of the work group to enable stakeholders to work towards more sustainable waste management and electric generation. Thank you for your time and for all you do for this great state.
Thank you. Greg Herner, I have activated your mic. You may unmute and begin.
Thank you. Just with the retirements of the board members today and moving on, I wanted to bring up some very good news. Flagship Cruises and Events received a grant for over $15 million from CARB. Although the waiver wasn't approved for in-use or short-run ferries under the commercial harbor capture rule, Flagship Cruises and Events worked with the Air Board and CARB and decided to go ahead and move forward and is developing 2 zero-emission ferries to replace the ferries that travel from San Diego to Coronado, which will obviously bring significant air quality benefits to San Diego, and they'll join some other great projects down there, one of which was the electric cranes, which I had the privilege of attending that dedication with the chair. So San Diego is becoming a real hub for innovation, and just want to compliment Flagship for moving forward and thank the CARB staff that helped to work on the grant and help move this project forward.
Thank you. We have 3 more commenters left in Zoom: Joshua Lovelace, Abigail DeCesa, and Ruben Rodriguez. Joshua, I've activated your mic. You may unmute and begin.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. My name is Joshua Lovelace. I work for Miller Industries. We are the world's largest manufacturer of towing and recovery equipment. I'd like to bring up that I am disheartened to see no update on how the ACT and the omnibus rules are working currently when the chair called for this very thing to happen back in the January meeting. We still can't get new lower emission chassis in California. As highlighted earlier in the portion about the wildfires down in the Los Angeles area, which is where I live, we're using tow trucks to clear those burned up vehicles, and there are many, many, many burned up vehicles. I heard a call for heavy equipment to be utilized to help clear this debris, and I think the number was somewhere in the roughly 4 million pounds of debris. That just highlights the value that we provide to economy, to keeping roads open and safe. And I'd like to highlight again that we are out of options, unfortunately. The ask is either to delay implementation of these regulations until suitable alternatives can be found. And we're here. We want to have cleaner air. I personally have taken part in research with various electric vehicle manufacturers, and it just simply doesn't work given the space that we need for our vehicles. So I ask that we find some sort of a workaround. I appreciate your time, and have a good day. Thank you.
Abigail DeCesa, I have activated your mic. You may unmute and begin. I do want to make one quick comment that signups and raising your hand has closed for this comment, for open comment. Thank you.
My name is Abigail DeCesa, and I've been a resident of Val Verde for over 26 years. Clean air should not be a luxury. For years now, because of Chiquita Canyon Landfill, there are many things my family can no longer do at our home or in our neighborhood. Barbecue or dine outside, have company over. It is incredibly embarrassing how bad it smells here. Have our grandchildren come for a visit and play with our outdoor pets. Watch the sunrise, sunset, or view the stars and moon on our patio. Walk our dogs, safely care for our outside animals and spend quality time with them. Spend time gardening in our yard, over an acre of land. Bike ride or hike the trails in our neighborhood. Wash our cars, clean and organize our garage, never able to open our windows for fresh air, ever. Here is what Chiquita Canyon Landfill has done to my daily physical and mental health. Headaches, episodes of tremors, shaking internally and externally, excessive fatigue, and yet can't sleep through the night, constricted dry throat no matter how much water I drink, restricted breathing, dizzy and off balance, falling or tripping a lot, disoriented and confused easily, nauseous stomach with episodes of diarrhea, episodes of feeling like my heart is racing, increased blood pressure, ringing or noise in my ears, burning eyes, irritability, depression and anxiety, petrified to go to the doctor, hopelessness, fear. Will this ever go away? We are living like prisoners, worse than the pandemic. We have skyrocketing electric bills. Our quality of life has diminished to just surviving. I cry every day and pray for a miracle. Our property value is gone. Our quality of life is gone. My health is gone, and I feel hopeless. CARB needs to immediately require the expanding and installation of landfill gas capture systems earlier and improve surface emissions monitoring frequency and coverage. I'm asking CARB to take immediate action to protect families like mine living near landfills. Clean air should not be a luxury. Thank you.
Thank you. Our last speaker, Ruben Rodriguez. I have activated your mic. You may unmute and begin.
Awesome. Can you hear me? Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Awesome. I would like to do my own interpretation just to keep it within the flow and not having pauses if that's a possibility. Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Rubén Rodríguez. Les hablo hoy desde la tierra de la tribu indígena de Yaucats, también conocido como Colinga. Quiero dejar perfectamente claro que mi comentario no pertenece a nadie específicamente, ni es intentado a faltarle el respeto a nadie. Me gustaría comenzar diciendo que es vergonzoso que sigamos teniendo tan poco tiempo para compartir un mensaje tan importante. 2 minutos no es suficiente. Están escuchando a personas decir que están enfermas y se están muriendo. Necesitamos que aquellos que se suponen deber protegernos, que tomen un paso al frente o se hagan a un lado y permitan que alguien más lo haga. Creo que es importante que visiten a estas comunidades que les están pidiendo ayuda. Vivimos en una época en la que las agencias que se suponen deben protegernos y defendernos se han quedado dormidos al volante. En la comunidad de Avenal hemos documentado 230 quejas por olores del vertedero reportadas al Distrito del Aire entre junio del 2007 y septiembre del 2022. Se trata de 15 años de quejas documentadas con solo 12 informes confirmados y solo una notificación de violación en esos 15 años. He escuchado a muchos residentes compartir sus verdades y les digo a aquellos que permiten que continúe esta corrupción, qué vergüenza. Recuerden cuál es el propósito de su trabajo y a quién se supone que representan. Si se sienten confundidos al buscar esta respuesta, yo pienso que es tiempo de cambiar trabajo. Quizás deberían buscar algo con menos responsabilidad. Necesitamos regulaciones más estrictas que beneficien a la gente y no a los vertederos que nos siguen causando daños. Thank you for allowing me to translate myself. My name is Ruben Rodriguez. I speak to you today from the unceded land of the indigenous Yokuts, also known as Colinga. I want to make it perfectly clear that my comment is not meant to be disrespectful or targeted towards anybody specifically. I want to start off by saying that it is shameful that we continue to receive such a short period of time to share such an important message. 2 minutes is not enough. You are hearing individuals share that they are sick and dying. We need more than 2 minutes to share this truth in an honorable and respectful way. We need those that are supposed to protect us to step up or step back and allow someone else to step in that will. I think it is important for you to come and visit these communities that are asking you for help. I think it is unethical if you were not to push for stronger regulations. We are living in times where the agencies that are supposed to protect us and defend us have fallen asleep at the wheel. In the community of Avenal, we have documented 230 odor complaints to the air district coming from the regional landfill from June 2007 to September 2022. We are talking about 15 years of documented complaints with only 12 confirmed reports and only 1 notice of violation issued in those 15 years. I have heard many residents share the truths and I say to those that allow this corruption to continue, shame on you and all that you do. Remember what the purpose of your job is and who you were meant to represent. And if you find yourself confused in the search for that answer, I say to you, I think it might be time for a change of jobs. Maybe look for something with a little less responsibility. We need stronger regulations that are for the benefit of the people and not for favoring the last.
Thank you, Madam Chair. That concludes our time for commenters.
All
Thank you.
right. Thank you very much. So I would like our executive officer to give us an update on the next steps and process around the landfill methane regulation. I think it's important to, I want to hear sort of what your plans are, but also talk a little bit about kind of the public engagement aspect of it. You know, one of the commenters mentioned that there was a workshop in December and there was a lot of industry representation, not as much community representation. And I think, you know, the challenge is that a lot of folks don't understand how critical these workshops are to the process, because that really is the first step. And so I think it's incumbent upon us to make sure that the community understands the importance of the workshop process in each step of the way. And so maybe you could talk about some strategies for how to involve the community more closely in the process.
Yeah, thanks, Chair Randolph. So as I mentioned in the January board presentation on CARB's priorities, that we plan to update the landfill methane regulation later this year. And so that's on track for this fall. The staff have been doing a variety of workshops, updating, looking for approaches to how to update, especially the monitoring aspects of that regulation. As has been noted, there are many new technologies out there, and we've recently established an arrangement to get satellite data as well. And so those are the types of new data sources that we could incorporate into the regulation for determining when leaks occur and to more quickly address those leaks to reduce the climate impacts of the regulation. The workshops are a critical part of developing any regulatory proposal, not only because we need to hear back from communities, the regulated industry, and others about concerns and how regulations can actually be successfully implemented. And because this is a regulation that hasn't been updated in about 15 years, there's also just new things that we'll learn as part of that. There's new staff that are involved. We're developing kind of a new knowledge base here at CARB as well. So this is for us a really critical item. We're looking forward to bringing that back to the board later this year. And in addition, committing to more workshops as part of this process and as part of the regulation development.
Is there an opportunity to perhaps have one of those workshops in the community, in the area near the landfill?
Yeah, that's a great idea. I think we could certainly do that. We'd like to reach out to colleagues in other agencies as well to see if they can join us. And I really appreciate the members of the Val Verde community coming today, taking time out of their schedule and expressing their concerns. That seems like a place where we could look for a potential community meeting. So we'd like to work with them to see if there's an appropriate venue for doing so.
Yeah, I think that would be a good idea. And to your point, engaging the other agencies, I think is really important. I know they've been doing a lot of work on this, both at the local and the state level. And there's a lot of nuances to, bills and the different regulatory frameworks around them. So having, some participation.
Yeah, we'll certainly do that. Thank you.
And thank you to the community for coming and sharing your perspective. We know it's a lot of work and time. So thank you very much. Okay, so we have one last thing to do, which is to honor our former board member, Davina Hurt. Davina Hurt was appointed to the board by Governor Newsom in December 2020. Her dedication to public service is exemplified in her commitment to clean air policy and environmental justice. As chair of the Bay Area Air Quality Management District, she has represented her district on the CARB board with a keen eye to help shepherd California's transition to zero-emission vehicles. Despite that massive workload at Bay Area, she really rolled up her sleeves at CARB, including her work with former Vice Chair Berg to lead a working group centered around incentive program improvements, her work on the AB 617 consultation group, and she was always incredibly accessible to stakeholders in discussing the critical issues that we have to balance. So I want to express our thanks to you for your work and really express how much we're gonna miss you here on the board.
Thank you so much for those words. And I have some prepared words because I didn't want to tear up and make sure I got everything I wanted to say, because this organization has meant so much to so many people as well as myself, and has actually inspired me to do the work that I will do in the future around maritime decarbonization. But before I go there, I also want to thank the community and acknowledge you all for coming out here. I think your presence is very powerful. And I think you all are the reason this work matters. California Air Resources Board isn't just a regulatory body, it's a lifeline. It is supporting CARB means standing up for health, for justice, and for communities that have been overlooked for far too long. And I always tell folks when I'm out in my community, when you hear the word CARB, those are the frontline defenders on the environment. And we have got to figure out ways to support and uplift. So to Governor Newsom, my former board members, our dedicated staff, and most importantly, the community members who continue to hold us accountable. Serving on the California Air Resources Board has been one of the greatest honors of my career. I stepped into this role as a public servant, an environmental justice advocate, and a mother determined to protect the air we breathe and the future we're leaving behind. I now step away even more resolute, deeply grounded in the belief that California must continue to lead. In a time when Washington, D.C. is rolling back environmental protections and threatening the progress of the environmental justice movement, California stands as the first line of defense. What we are witnessing at the federal level is not just a shift in policy, it is a direct challenge to science, equity, and our shared humanity. And yet, here in California, we persist. We persist because our communities deserve better. We lead because the stakes are too high. And we act urgently and boldly because the work of protecting our health, our climate, and our future cannot wait. To my fellow board members, thank you for your courage, collaboration, and your fierce commitment to doing what is right, not just what is easy. To the governor, thank you for appointing leaders who reflect the full breadth and depth of California's diversity, and for holding the line in the face of political headwinds. And to the community, thank you for showing up, for speaking truth to power, and for reminding us that public service is a promise, not a position. I'm proud of what we've accomplished together, Chair. You've spoken to some of those things. The implementation of AB 617 to pushing forward our zero emission transportation goals. These are victories that belong to all of us. And they were hard fought, but I know the road ahead will require even more resolve, creativity, and courage. After this latest election, we stand on the precipice of a new world, and I'm reminded of the words of Ruha Benjamin, who said, "We must dismantle the worlds that is and imagine the world that could be." Those words live at the heart of why I do this work, why we fight, why we organize, and why we dare to dream of a future shaped by justice and possibility. Ruha Benjamin reminds us that true change is not just about putting new faces on broken systems. It's about reimagining the world entirely, building something new, something that reflects the full diversity, inclusivity, and spirit of belonging that defines the best of who we are. In the coming years, there will be those who drag their feet on the changes we know are necessary. They will point to the cost of living, to technology limitations, or to the burdens our communities face as reasons to delay action. But I want to share something I've learned firsthand during my time at the international climate conferences. These challenges are not unique to Bay Area or California or even the United States. People everywhere across borders and oceans are grappling with the same crises. The cost of inaction, however, is far greater than the cost of progress. We cannot let fear or inertia become an excuse. We cannot allow economic hardships to be wielded as a reason to deny environmental justice. Instead, we must turn our attention to those with the resources, the power to help us shift the tides. The question is no longer whether we can afford to change, but whether we can afford not to. As I step out of this formal role, I do so not with farewell, but with a renewed commitment. You'll still find me in coalition with all of you in policy rooms and in the community, building a future rooted in justice, science, and a deep love for this planet that we share. And I thank you all for the work that you do and the vision, and I will be watching, maybe not for the 8 hours I think I've been in a meeting, but definitely here and there. So with gratitude and solidarity, thank you all.
Thank you so much, Davina. We will miss you very much. Dr. Balmes wanted to say a word. Oh, and our new board member Hopkins would like to say a word as well.
Davina, as usual, I'm going to tear up because I'm really going to miss you. But as usual, your words were beautiful, right from the heart, and also of impact. And I'm going to miss that most about you, your words at board meetings. But on another personal level, I'm going to miss you in terms of AB 617 consultation group, because I wouldn't have survived that group without you. And so thank you for all you did to support me.
Board Member Hopkins.
I promise I will keep this short because I think I set a record for the longest resolution ever in honor of then Chair Hurt at the Bay Area Air Quality Management District. And it was because truly you have accomplished so much. And you use the word, I think, fierce, and that is exactly how I would describe you, as a fierce and fearless leader who is always focused on future generations and champions environmental justice. And somehow it feels appropriate that we had an hour and a half of poignant, powerful, personal testimony before we had the opportunity to honor you, because you have always put community first. And you leave a tremendous legacy of improvements to clean air, but also, honestly, more powerfully and more important, trusting relationships with community, because they were actually genuinely heard and honored by your work. So thank you so much. And I can't wait to see what you do next, because I know that you are going to continue to change the world.
And with that, the March 27th, 2025 CARB Board meeting is now adjourned. Thank you.